This episode of Limit Break Radio is made possible by our generous Patreon donors, including Kandro Dakini of Fairy, Tajet Siri of Adamantois, Melchiria Delenfer of Sargentanus. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/limitbreakradio.
Live from Eorzea.
Limit Break with your hosts, Nero.
It was a joke, you bitch!
Kahlo.
It's not funny! It's never been funny! It's never gonna be funny!
Juxtaposition.
We're just trying to be funny, but I guess it just wasn't as funny as we thought it was.
And Nika.
That's right. It wasn't very funny at all.
LimitBreakRadio.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1!
Welcome to Limit Break Radio, episode number 29. Back once again on this wonderful holiday weekend. A little bit late on the stream. Sorry about that, guys. But we're here. We're here.
I have a good R word, but it's going to spoil it for everybody.
A radio
Rageborn.
Oh! Joining us today, we've got a very special guest host, Samus Rageborn, a.k.a. the Evolved Male.
A.k.a. the Rage Boner.
Yes. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you on.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Dude, we're excited to have you on. You've been a guest on Limit Breaking News, was it, before?
Oh, yeah, one time, which I was told afterwards I shouldn't have brought him in because it was already halfway through. He's like, that's unprofessional. I'm like, all right, fine. That's so much, leave him out.
Well, you spent like 10 minutes after that, like, adjusting frames and shit.
I know. See what you did, Samus?
It's all your fault.
Try to help again.
The problem with that is that you shouldn't have had... That's not a camera show. Nothing we do here at Limit Break Radio is a camera show. All of that stuff's for Final Encounter.
It's all right. You edited it
You
out.
ruined
You
the...
edited it out.
You ruined the magic.
We fixed it in post.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, this is why we can't have
This
nice
is how we
things.
get ants.
So anyway, thank you for joining us, and of course we are live from Eorzea. Let's kick it over to the studio, and man, there is a lot of people in the studio today.
Hey, studio!
What the? Wow, there's a shitload of people. Holy crap! Look at how many people.
A lot of those are just Moogles, though.
You know why they're here?
Why are they here?
They heard that we're missing a certain somebody today.
Oh yeah,
A certain number.
Yeah, they all thought that they could get a seat at the desk, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, of course, my name is Aniro Grigori. Joining me is Kahlo Landis, Juxtaposition, and Nika Kayanian, and our special guest, Samus Rageborn. And absent is numero 6.
Numero 60.
Yeah, number 6. Ascalia not able to join us today.
No loss.
Unfortunately. And, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
So today we're going to make fun of a Nero's nose.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's fine. I know I've got a huge nose.
Damn it.
It's not, like, I know all of the things that suck about me. I've got shitty teeth and my hair is not very good. And
His hair is not very good.
No, I don't.
It's not bad.
It's not terrible.
But it's not very good.
I try to keep it, like maintained.
So
somewhat.
then you're aware of your gigantic forehead, then.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, and how
my
it's like
huge, meaty Mike Nelson-y forehead.
It reminds me of the Great Plains of North America.
And then there's a Nero in real life. I mean, wait, what?
Oh, we're not.
I thought we were
That's
talking
why
about
he
in real
wears
life.
that Odin helm, so you can't see any of that.
See, that's what I was going to ask. Is that why he wears the helmet? But I couldn't figure out if you.
Oh yeah, no, that's my face. That the Odin helm is my. That's the only face that I have in this game. I don't have another one. I don't know. Any face.
He definitely does not look like a Mongolian.
I definitely. Well, the thing is that if you see me at any point when I'm not wearing the Odin helm, all that is just a glamour mask to make my face look like a face.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's all
It's a skin mask.
Yeah, it is. Of my victims. Anyway, all right. Welcome to the show. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today live on twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. It's gonna be a fun one here today. We're gonna be talking about the metagame of Final Fantasy XIV.
Really quickly, I'd just like to point out that the chat said Kahlo is so adorable as a Lalafell. And then someone else said, La La Landis is best Landis.
No. Oh, yeah.
They're just trying to, like, not have buyer's remorse. That's what that is.
You're entitled to your opinion, but your opinion is wrong.
But they suck.
Yeah.
But they suck.
Yeah, you're terrible.
Why aren't you in a chair anyway? You don't get any special privilege.
Yeah, why do you feel like you can just stand on the table like a savage?
Some kind of asshole.
Because I'm a badass.
Yeah,
Look at me sitting there with the little chocobo.
You guys yell at me for having stuff all on the desk.
Yeah, and for once we have something cool on the desk.
You don't
Me.
help me.
We have Frederick the drinking Apkalu.
Tracking all kinds of mud all over the desk. You damn asshole. You better clean this up when you switch back.
I
know it's difficult now because we don't have a step stool and everything.
I just flip up there, dude.
Yeah. All right, so but before we get into our topic here today, we've also got a bunch of your emails to read. We got a lot of emails in response to the last episode. Let's talk about a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV news.
This is a Limit Breaking News update.
And there we go. Yeah, no, a little piece of production to start that segment off. I don't know. I had that rolling around. I found that. I'm like, we never used this. And so we're going to use this for now.
It sounded
cool.
Segment. It's too bad Nick and Samus ruined it.
Yeah, by talking over it. What the fuck, guys?
We can't hear it.
I know, but I told you I was going to be firing a thing before the news.
Oh,
you didn't say it before the news.
He put his hand up in studio, so we knew to be quiet.
You just said you were going to use it at some point.
You said you had a piece of production to use during the show.
Terrible.
Yeah, you didn't tell us.
You were the bad.
Terrible.
Do it again now, and we can edit the last 30 seconds of you guys yelling at me and Nico.
They're both Rogadin, so it's kind of, I'm not really surprised.
Yeah. It happens.
You have to expect it from these people.
All right, let's talk about what's going on in Final Fantasy XIV news. Not a whole lot to talk about, except for the plans for the Tokyo Game Show 2015. It's going to be live September 17th through the 20th over in Japan, and they're going to be having a live producer letter from the Tokyo Game Show on Friday, September 18th at 8 p.m. Pacific. You can watch that through Nico, but this is exciting. They also have announced that there will be a YouTube link as well, so us international folks don't have to bother with Nico's incredibly asinine website. I hate that website so much. Trying to figure that shit out for the Japanese Fan Fest was trying. So just very, very, very glad to know that that's not, we're not going to have to deal with that. The audio is only going to be in Japanese, and hopefully there's going to be some live translating going on.
So do they actually have plans for Tokyo Game Show? Are we actually going to get stuff, or is it just going to be like, yeah, we're here, what's up?
No idea.
We really. I mean, it's a live producer letter from Tokyo Game Show. Like,
man, I hope so.
Man, you know what I think? I think that they're going to take the opportunity to show off Void Ark. Like, I think that this is, they've only shown off concept screens of it.
There's nothing else in the foreseeable future that they could make these big announcements at before 3.1 is,
we also need to get a date. They're gonna have to attach a hard date to that as well.
Yeah, I feel like even if we don't get more news about 3.1, like we should at least be getting a date here at some point.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. So let's see. For attendees, if you're lucky enough to be going to the Tokyo Game Show, they're going to have the Ravana Battle Challenge that they've had out at, they just had that at PAX, so you can get your Ravana t-shirt. They're also going to have the Cactar Lottery 3.0. And each server, basically everyone's probably going to be getting this Gubu earring because it seems like every time they have one of these Cactar lotteries, that the exclusive item just sort of makes its way to all of the servers eventually. And if not, you can probably buy it in the cash shop later.
Pay to win.
There's going to be plenty of merch and swag out there, some of which was shown off on the anniversary stream, including the Carbuncle plushies, the Minion mug, the leather smartphone case, a wall scroll, and the tote bag. And a lot of these are pretty cool. Carbuncle plushies, everyone freaked out about those. No Fat Cat Minion, though. No,
I have a Fat Cat.
No Fat Cat plushie. There's no Fat Cat Minion plushie.
You want to know why?
Enough.
It's because Pusheen has the market on that one.
Are you shitting me? People lost their fucking minds when that was behind Yoshi in the anniversary event. They need...
Yoshi is a
They'll
troll.
release it eventually.
It's
going to be like $80.
They could probably jack it up more than that because it's Fat Cat. Let's be honest.
How much is Fat Chocobo?
I think it was 80.
Oh my god, for a plushie.
But yeah, the carbuncles were 40, but the fat chocolate was 80.
You know, if they really want to bring in the money, what they need to do is they need to put Minfilia on a body pillow.
Oh no!
yeah.
Oh god! I just cringed so hard.
I totally creamed too. Or I mean, cringed.
That's so gross. Ugh.
Gross.
Or
I think they would sell a ton of that. Are you
I
kidding?
know they would.
Or Urianger, so that Nika doesn't feel left out.
Thank you.
He's like what, the sexiest living
No,
NPC?
Amaric, are you kidding me?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely
no,
absurd.
yeah. I'm gonna give her that one, Emmerich. Yeah.
Yes, I will buy him on a pillow, and he will be displayed all day, every day in my room.
Thancred is dreamy.
Someone in the chat says Tataru body pillow. You can just put Tataru on a normal pillow.
Yeah.
Just throw a pillow.
That's weird.
How much would you charge for a Minfilia body pillow?
If the freaking fat,
like $50.
No, if the fat chocobo was going for 80, no, you can get away with like 100 easy.
A lot of only guys out there playing this game. That's not unreasonable. Just saying.
Oh man! All right, so that's pretty much it for news. I mean, there's really
Good
not
news.
much. There's not much news outside of that.
You know what people would also like? Someone in the chat mentioned Hearts and Farts body pillow, but I think they're more apt to put him on a body bag.
Oh
No, the body pillow would work great because it'd be full of holes.
Broken shield and hole in the right through the middle. Yeah. True to life.
I forgot who said it or where I saw it, but one of my new favorite terms to use now, like in FF related things, is that has more plot holes than Hearts and Fart.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. Kind of hitting home where if there are any real like die hard Hearts and Farts fans in the chat, they have got to be going. Oh,
a lot of them are
too soon.
Just wait. They'll take it to Twitter tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll
Can't make fun of dead people, guys. I'm offended by that. People have died.
Yeah, right. And I mean, you know what? Like, you can't make fun of Betty White, who just died. I mean, you know.
Too soon.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Ooh.
Oh well.
Everyone loved Betty White.
Yeah, I know, but that old bitch is dead, and she can't hear us talk shit about her.
Wow.
Wait, are you serious? Why haven't I heard that?
Yeah. She died this morning.
Yeah, how is that not on Facebook?
That's where I saw it.
You may, unless you
it
got
was, like,
pranked.
joke.
No, I actually clicked the thing and it took me to like Empire something.
Are you sure that's not a joke?
It may be. You may. Yeah,
I
it
don't
may have
know.
been. There's a
I've
lot of
seen
those
a
that
lot
go
of those,
around.
like, Betty
I'm
White-
trusting
Yeah,
Kahlo on
wait a
this.
minute,
If Kahlo's wrong,
No, I think you're wrong.
if Kahlo's wrong,
Hold on. If Betty White was dead, she's as big as Robin Williams, and everyone would know about it.
yeah, I feel like it would be.
And plus,
way
Kahlo's
far over.
Kahlo's article was talking about her hair color the whole time.
Someone said, "Well, shit, it's about time."
No, I think
Right.
it's a hoax, guys. I've seen every single year. I see a Betty White like dyed her hair
It
in her
happens a
bedroom.
lot. It happens.
Oh,
yeah, it
all right,
happens a
maybe
lot.
then,
So,
maybe.
I don't know. I'm looking. I'm looking
Wasn't-
at you.
in fact,
I
I
made the
think-
joke, so I'm the one stuck stuck.
I think I forget who the last Golden Girl was to die, but like, isn't like every 3 years like that headline keeps reemerging? Like, oh, so and so died, and it's been like 6 years now. That happened with somebody.
I don't know. Anyway,
FF news.
Yeah, we're done with that. Anyway, hey, so Samus joining us today to talk about, since there's really no FF14 stuff to talk about.
Since there's nothing to talk about,
really scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
Yeah, we gotta find some. We gotta find someone. No, you know,
the devolved male, everybody.
Climb my way back up. An interesting discussion. Second string host here.
Yeah, no.
Let's not give yourselves too much credit here.
We're pulling from our backup topics now.
Hey Samus, how's my favorite streamer's girlfriend doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
No. You're my favorite streamer, but I'm asking about your girlfriend.
Oh, yo.
That was a good one.
I am my girlfriend. Wait.
What, you talking about my left hand?
I had to take a step back and think about it because she doesn't actually watch me stream, but I guess by default I would be.
Well, because I remember when you were on Sergeant Tannis and we were doing that AV and you were being a dick with the parser, and I said something on the stream, and later you're like, yeah, my girlfriend's like, what are you doing to Kahlo? Leave him alone.
So yeah, we've brought Samus on to talk about a subject that was raised by an email we got. What was that? 4 or 5 episodes back?
Yep, it was a minute ago.
It was a little while ago, but talking about the meta game of Final Fantasy XIV and how it actually impacts the real game. And so we thought we would invite Samus on to unpack this discussion, considering that
none of us knew what the fuck we were really talking about.
It seemed like all of us seemed to have a different definition or a different idea of what is what is implied by the term metagame. So,
well, and this might actually be a first for our show, because this isn't a topic that you can necessarily give concrete data and stuff on. It's all very philosophical in nature. So.
Yeah, it is. It's all, I mean, what we're talking about is highly subjective here. Talking about a lot of opinions, a lot of feelings, and then, how they resonate out into the community, and how that creates a bigger ripple effect than just say, what the mechanics of the game have to offer. So, let's talk about the metagame. Samus, why don't you give us a definition of what you feel the metagame is?
Yeah, I think I kind of remember where this stemmed from. I was streaming one day, and we were talking about UFC and talking about like different fighting styles and how there's a belief that certain fighting styles are better than others. And then I was like, well, this is like video games too, where there's a metagame to pretty much all kinds of video games. And I was talking about Hearthstone and how people are saying certain decks are better than others. People like playing Warlock decks or whatever deck it is. I don't play Hearthstone, but I was just trying to give an example, saying that the idea of metagame is using information outside of the game and building strategies within the game. So an example would be for CCGs, any collectible card game, there's always ideas being tossed around saying that, this type of deck is better than other kinds of decks. And so what'll happen is everyone will start building this popular kind of deck. And, eventually people figure out ways around it and say, well, okay, if everyone's playing this kind of deck, then I'm going to build a counter deck that is specifically built to take out this popular deck. And that's what metagaming is to collectible card games.
Yeah, and some people, I'm not going to name any hosts in the room, Nika, feel like that type of idea isn't present in like MMOs or single player games, and it is. We actually had sort of like a discussion in the office the other day, and I brought up the idea that one of the current metas right now in the game is the whole deal with paladins, and she's like, that's not a meta. That's true, they are worse. And that's true too, just like in, like you said, TCGs, when you have like a warlock deck, that's the best. People know what its weakness is or whatever, and so they try to come up with ways to beat it. That's the meta. Now, it's true in games like that, the meta changes more than in an MMO.
Right.
But I think, to me, the idea of meta in any game is basically, take Final Fantasy 14, since that's, the podcast we do, right?
Sure.
Anything outside of the game, outside the fact that you're an adventurer in this game that you do is meta. When you decide what cross-class skills to use, right? You're deciding that as a player. That's meta because that is outside of the game.
However, my definition and what I've figured, or what I seem to understand meta was that if there can't be a best way to do any one thing. And when you have a game like 14 that's all completely mechanic based with a jump rope mechanics where it's like you need this equipment and this gear and this abilities to be the best, you can't really have a meta, because the meta is really about looking at the situation, saying, oh, they're kind of working towards this, I'm going to adjust my play style to be like this. However, in 14, there is no alternate play styles to what you do, because there is literally one best way to play every single job in this game.
That's not true.
But that's why meta is like a moving target, because building on last episode, we weren't too happy with what paladins are with right now. But what if paladins are supposed to be made that way, meaning they're supposed to be more defensive, and you're supposed to have healers do more DPS and not worry so much about healing? That's why with meta, it's so subjective that everyone kind of comes up with their strategy, and if there's a way to consolidate it or just to throw ideas and have discussion about it, it creates different ideas for what people can do. So,
Right.
I was listening to the last episode. Yeah, go on.
Well, no, I was just going to say, and the fact that it changes,
Right.
like that's sort of, to me, what, like in the course of, the couple of years that this game has been out, like, there haven't actually been all that many tweaks that have been made to the jobs. There's been some balancing and some, potencies and some stuff like that. After a big patch and new jobs are added, there's usually some balancing that we saw with something like 3.07, going all the way back to 2.0 when they quote-unquote fixed Warrior. Warriors were still seen as kind of an inferior tank for a lot of situations for a while after that, and it wasn't until the community kind of figured out, like, there are ways to up Warrior's damage that most people who are trying to concern themselves with keeping enmity and aren't
not
doing
taking damage
and not doing things like like pushing end game where DPS is kind of a bigger consideration, not a requirement but a bigger consideration, then the opinions will always shift, and yes, some development changes will shift those as well. And it's not to say, like, this isn't a way to say that, like, Paladin doesn't need development. I think that there are clear cases where when jobs underperform for certain reasons or in certain circumstances, that there needs to be some adjustment or reaction from the dev team. But that also happens in other games and TCGs as well. As you start expanding, getting more and more packs, more and more versions of your TCG, the rules end up starting to shift. What you can play in tournament play and what you play among your friends, like that's how those games receive development. It's different because MMOs can have a quicker turnaround time, and you see the impact of that in a way quicker fashion.
And also, we saw the meta shift right at the start of Heavensward, because right when Heavensward came out, people thought Dark Knights were garbage.
Yeah,
it was
that's true.
all over the forums. People
Yep.
saying, buff Dark Knights, they're terrible. They can't
Yep.
keep hate. And that's
How much did they actually buff Dark Knight?
They really didn't.
They really didn't. It was a TP adjustment. Part of it is a perception issue, because you've got a bunch of either new or shitty players. Sorry, got to be honest. You've either got a bunch of new or shitty players that are playing the job and trying things out,
or even
but
just not knowing how the job works because it's brand new.
Right. And there was no end game to push at that time.
Yep.
So the end game raiders couldn't actually use it in the applications that they needed to use it in to be able to suss those things out. Man, like, I mean, Nika, you're not wrong that Paladin legit needs development, but I think that the perception that Paladin has and everyone calling it just blanketly shit, like that, I think is part of the metagame right there.
Well, that just sounds like mob mentality, though.
That's part of it, yeah.
But meta is mob mentality. That's the fucked
Okay,
up
then
thing.
I guess I'm a little bit confused, because when I think of meta, it's more like in a fighting game where you have like, oh, I know that this particular person I'm playing against, uses a lot of low attacks, so I'm going to use a lot of high attacks to make, or whatever, to counter that. And then, but if I play another person with that same exact character, I can't play it the same way. I'm going to, try to feel them out and then change my strategy.
Yeah,
Right. That's all within the game. That's all within the meta.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're talking about a mob mentality, that's not exactly the same thing.
No. It is this. It's almost the exact same thing, because I mean, if you think about it, someone who specializes in Paladin is someone like in Super Smash Brothers that specializes in Peach. Like, if you specialize in one character and then somebody chooses the character that they know they can constantly counter you in, well,
That's the meta.
That's the meta.
That's the meta.
It's that's
Right,
right.
so how
there.
does that apply to 14, where every boss you fight is so mechanical? It's the exact same thing every single time. You don't have to
This
change
is
your
how it
strategy.
applies, Nika. Everyone's saying that Paladin. Whoa, that was weird. Everyone's saying that Paladin is terrible, which they are, right? And they're not taking them, right? So because of that, you're changing your strategy. You're leveling up Warrior. That's the meta right there. You are changing the way you play because of the game.
Or
The
another
reason that
example.
you have it stuck in your head is because the meta that you're used to is person versus person, and you're changing based on the way that a person changes. In an MMO, it's not person versus person. It's you and the game, and the way that you play affects how the game plays. When enough people stop playing Paladin, or if enough people stop playing Black Mage because of all the crazy changes they made to their DPS, the devs are going to look at it and be like, shit, nobody's playing these jobs anymore. We have to change it. It's changing based on circumstances that we have done because of what we know about it.
Right, but where I was going with that is that I'm not leveling Warrior because so many people say Paladin sucks and no one wants a Paladin. I'm leveling it because I look at my numbers. I look at how many times we wiped at 1%, knowing if I was a Warrior, we wouldn't have wiped at 1%.
Exactly, Nika,
but that's
yes.
the intra game, right? That's what's
it's-
inside of the game, and the flat fact numbers of the intra game, not the meta game.
You didn't need somebody externally to tell you that you needed to do that. You knew it yourself. That's still part of the metagame.
Yeah, just
sounds
like
like
if somebody in a fighting game kept countering you over and over and over again, you would say, shit, I need to stop doing that. I need to find a way to not be countered. That's all it is.
Maybe it's not on you. See, another extension to the metagame is how your group looks at it as well. So you said, okay, we're getting a lot of 1% wipes because the Paladin's not doing enough damage. Well, what if instead of having the Paladin change, why don't you have your healers change?
Well,
Why
the
don't you have your
healers were already doing a lot. That was the problem.
Well, that's the meta. That's meta mentality as well, right? That's
Right.
like saying, well, the healers are already maxed out. How do we know that? We know that Paladins has survivability. So if you switch to Warrior, that means the healers have to do that much more healing, which means they're doing less damage. What if we take it?
Actually, that's kind of. I mean, I
never would've thought about that
Yeah,
angle.
that's
Exactly.
kind of a fair point.
Yeah,
And that's something that I didn't even consider.
I have thought about that when I looked at some clear parsers. I was like, our Scholar is doing like 100 more DPS than all of the other clear parsers I've seen. And then it breaks down to they're like, oh, I use Hollow Ground at this time, so they can do more DPS. I'm like, okay, I guess.
Right.
See, I think-
Yeah. So, but again, using Warrior, there's going to be a slight trade-off there because you don't have the straight damage mitigation that a Paladin has. And so, I think that this issue does fall under the metagame category.
100%.
And again, just like with Super Smash Brothers or like with Street Fighter or whatever, sometimes it takes development, and the developers, it becomes intrinsic on the developers to react. Now, in games like that, or games like TCGs, I already said, like, it takes another iteration. It takes either an expansion for a TCG, or it takes the next version of the fighting game. Look at all of the alphas and the different fucking Street Fighter versions that there are as a perfect example of that. They're tweaking the game to try to get the results that they want from their player base. And, it works. Like, a lot of times that works. But you know what? There is the other side of that. It's kind of a double-edged sword, because when the devs become overreactive and too reactive to player criticism or player feedback, then we end up getting absolute development clusterfucks where the community has no idea what's going on. That happened a lot of time in Ultima Online, where they ended up throwing so many changes at you that it was so overwhelming that I was just like, fuck it, I'm done, I'm out. I don't understand what this is for anymore, and none of the shit that I had invested in is usable. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's that end of it too. And how do you guys see what is the role of a developer in the metagame?
Well, obviously, that's what everything should be based on. I mean, the metagame is what informs them what works in an MMO and what doesn't work in an MMO. You know, obviously, any job changes that occur are going to happen because of that. Like you said, people thought that Dark Knight sucked when it first came out, right?
Right. But
there wasn't any changes. You know, that was part of the meta game. But once they got to a certain point and people figured out, oh, this is how you use them, it was fine. Whereas when it came to Machinists and Astrologian, they actually received changes, right?
Right.
So,
I think developers, they got to take a step back, like throw something out there, and then let the players figure it out. Because what Aniro was saying is that when developers are too involved and they overdevelop and they make changes every week or every patch, it kind of confuses the players because, you know, the players are going in one direction trying to figure out, you know, why Dark Knight sucks, or why Bards and Machinists have bad DPS, or, you know, why Astrologian sucks at healing. Why shouldn't we take Astrologians into, you know, Alexander Savage?
Right.
And you're not giving the players a chance to play. Because, I mean, I think Square Enix could have very easily tweaked all the new classes right when 3.0 dropped. You know, first couple of weeks they got the feedback, but they said, no, you know what, fuck it. Let's give it a month. Let's give it a month and let people figure it out. And that's the right move, I think.
I totally agree. And to Square Enix's credit, you know, one of the things that I think is important to keep in mind, developer side, for an issue like this, is that, like, when you change a job or you change a core mechanic, when you release the information about what changed, the community should mostly understand why those changes are being made, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that Square Enix is really, really good about. Like, all the changes that we get to jobs over time, everything that they added in 3.0, it seems to make sense. Like, the community is able to make sense with what it is, and then able to identify its problems. So when they go back and they say, okay, well, we fixed Sheltron to be, you know, an automatic shield block for 11 seconds, then, you know, like, I think if that was in a patch, now everyone can look at that and go, oh, okay, I get why that was a change.
Yeah.
What you want to avoid is changing so much and people going, well, that's not even the job that I've been leveling for the last 3 months.
Like Bard now?
Yeah,
how it feels like a mage, like that's what everybody here is like. I'm a black mage now. I can run and gun.
I cast arrow.
Or that's right. I have to stand still and cast it.
Bard, the whole metagame around Bards, like it pisses me off to no end when people are complaining that, you know, Bards aren't what they were before. Well, no shit. Of course they're not what they were before. The job has changed. And, you know, they're saying we can't pull the DPS as we did before. No, I'm not convinced of that. I think there's still a lot of learning to be done in that class.
So would you say that the bards just have to evolve?
I see what you did there. Shut up.
I can understand bards being angry that now they're being forced to stand and cast, because that's not what the class was signed up to do. I mean, you were meant to be a mobile ranged unit that could.
Didn't they change that?
No. You still
Wanderer's
have to.
Minuet makes you stay in place and cast like a black mage. But see, that's to me, like, I don't know if this is metagame. It could be, but to me, like, yes, originally bards are supposed to be mobile and you're supposed to move around and do damage, but they changed it, and so as players, we should be adjusting to that, not the other way around. They shouldn't be, you know, succumbing to us and saying, oh, you know, you don't like it, okay, well, we'll change it for you. No, if that was the case, then it would be such a shitty game. And
see, I think that Justin's got a point, though, because it's not a case. All right, people who are just bitching about, our DPS is too low, change it to make it better. That's one thing. Yeah. You're right. No, get good. But when you actually fundamentally change the way the job operates to where when you play it, it doesn't feel like the job you love anymore, I think that's valid.
You know, we're going to be changing the ninja job so that you guys primarily operate off of shuriken throwing, and
fuck that.
You know, like,
I'm going monk.
You know what I mean? Like, that kind of change. It's that kind of shit, and I've seen it happen in other games.
In WoW, every single expansion, it would happen to almost every single spec.
Yeah. The talent trees would change and people would have to adjust. But that's I don't think that's a bad thing, though. I don't think that's a bad thing, because they're giving us something new and different. And I think when people just are frustrated because it's new or it's hard or it's difficult or they're too fucking lazy to learn it, they should move on.
Well, see, and that's the challenge to me as a developer is finding ways to give new challenging things without changing what people love about it. Like, the Black Mage is a perfect example, right? It's a lot harder rotation, but you're still pretty much doing the same thing that you were doing.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that's exactly it. The thing that you have to balance, I mean, there is an aesthetic balance that you have to maintain as a developer because people a lot of times play the job that they most closely associate with personally. I don't know why that is. I mean, that's definitely a thing that we all do. I mean, there are people who level specific jobs for specific reasons, but I think we all form an attachment to our quote unquote main job for reasons. We've talked about this on the show before. Like we've spent time unpacking that. Like I think I feel pretty comfortable putting that out there. So I think that is also a balance as well, because I mean, if you introduce a class like Monk and then go, hey, we're going to put rocket boots on it and you're going to shoot a crossbow from the air,
that'd be amazing.
That would be pretty
Monk
awesome.
New Main.
You know what I mean? But like monks would be like, what the fuck, man?
What are you doing to us?
What the hell is this shit? You know, like, and I get that. Like, yeah, it would be awesome for some people because you don't give a shit about Monk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I want to play Rocket Monk.
That kind of shit happens all the time.
There's Rocket Monks in other games?
No, but developers will misunderstand or overreact to something that the community wants, and they'll put in something retarded like vampires or I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
wait, vampire Rocket Monks?
What? Vampire Rocket Monks?
You're terrible at this. What's the bad examples?
They glow in the sun and live in Seattle too. Yeah.
You can't just make up jobs like this.
Good use there. Props for that one.
Because I am just making up jobs. So, but
well, you can't. The drop said so.
Getting our hopes up.
But yeah, no, I really do think that it's sort of on developers to be able to temper a lot of that criticism, whether it comes from a source like the forums or a podcast or a Twitch stream. I mean, I know that they're plugged into a lot of these and that the community team does a really good job, but and I also, and again, credit to Square-Enix, they do a pretty good job of being able to filter out the crazy whiny bullshit.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, like you said, they take a long time to observe what's going on, and even offer a little bit of feedback, like that whole live letter where basically Yoshi P was just like, machinists get good. We're not changing anything, right?
And that's a good thing, because if the developers change too much and too often, then people will start to not trust Square-Enix, and they'll be like, well, it's not going to be the same in 3 weeks, so what would even be the point?
Right, and a big thing that comes from that, a big problem is, if developers were to do that, it stops players from trying new things and experimenting with stuff. And
try to make things be good.
And doing things like, oh, here, we put this ninja back to FF11 in as a DPS, and suddenly it's a fucking tank?
Yeah,
and it's the best tank in the game? That's not what they had in mind.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. Really let players work at things and figure stuff out.
And I think that stands to be mentioned because we've given a lot of lip service to FF11 and the kind of flexibility that had, and that also had a really, I mean, we were also very much involved with the metagame there, and that had a really interesting metagame in the fact that the community would take things that were given to them and find totally separate applications
because nothing was given from the developers in that case. There only was the metagame.
Yes, that's actually
and the AV kill strategy.
An AV kill strategy.
I mean, it seems to be a fairly big shift on their part, development side, to go from this very kind of like. Now, I mean, it wasn't wide open. Your possibilities weren't wide open, but it had a much more flexible system in terms of, what players had at their disposal in terms of different jobs.
Right.
As opposed to 14, that is much more rigid, regimented, and as a result has to be a little bit responded to a little bit more. The more attention and care has to be paid by the development team to what the community is doing and where the numbers are falling. Because you're right, we do get problems like Paladin.
Although I do take a little bit of disagreement with that. I mean, back in 2.0, you had things like Ramu EX and a bunch of the coil fights where people started single tanking it to utilize Paladin's more defensive capabilities instead of dual tanking it.
Right.
So I don't agree with the fact that this game is rigid and you can only do things this one way.
Well, that's why I think this game's
example.
changing.
That's a perfect example of metagame. Like, people were used to doing 2 tanks, and then eventually we got enough gear to single tank a lot of stuff, and then you wouldn't single tank. I mean, you might single tank with the warrior, but you would single tank more often with a paladin. From there, you would be able to push more DPS out of your group than
single heal strategies too.
Or single heal, with the paladin, right? I mean, single heal with a warrior would be kind of ballsy depending on what you're doing, but it'd be generally with a paladin. So, and taking it back to the discussion from last week, why not? Like, why not push more paladins? But why not have more paladins build on their defensive, the strengths that they have in defense, but force your other players to adjust and say, hey, do less healing, do more damage healers.
I feel like Final Fantasy XIV does have room for a defensive tank right now that primarily focuses on, making sure other people can do more DPS, but I don't think Paladin is in that spot right now.
No, I agree, and I loved Nika's point from last week's show, where she said, if you get into a hairy situation, a Paladin having increased defense should be able to, pop some additional cooldowns to give some relief to those healers to be able to get other people up for a possible attempt at a recovery. But when you have, like Nika had so clearly pointed out, when you have DPS checks that are so tight and hardened rages that are so tight, that makes that role impossible to fill.
Yeah, that was my problem with where I was going with that on last episode, is that back in original Coil, like, I did T9 solo tank from the start. Like, we didn't even wait till we outgeared it. We just took that strategy and ran with it because Paladin had that capability, and you could almost completely just recycle the same moves in a cycle until you eventually beat it. The DPS check, I mean, there was like a soft enrage, but the DPS check wasn't so hard, and it allowed for that different kind of strategy that you could do. Whereas the current way their game is taking it, Square-Enix is pretty much like, no, so dual tank all the time, all day long, and you don't really have that opportunity to utilize Paladin or any other kinds of strategies. There's like the one way right now, and that's where I'm kind of worried the game is going in that direction.
And you know what? That could possibly be a problem too, because I remember in some of the first episodes of LBR, one of the things that we were talking about was, do you remember how many one-shot mechanics that there were just everywhere, right? Everything had them, and we're like that's so unfair. Well, not necessarily unfair, but it makes it to where it's just about learning the mechanics, right? And as soon as you have those down, it's easy, right? There's no necessarily any skill involved. And now with all of these hardened rage timers, it kind of feels the same way. If you can't get to that point, you're done.
Right.
Whereas I think the idea of like soft enrages and a medium enrage and having it gradually build up would be a lot more fun, because it also then gets a lot more intense. It's not just about beating a time.
Well, and I think they've gotten really clever with stuff like this in the past. I kind of think of the Imdagood fight, where it is sort of a soft enrage, but it's also affecting the combat area as well.
Yeah,
what I mean?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, exactly. That was a really clever, unique way. And I mean, I guess I'm not even really thinking about it until now, that they were able to create a soft enrage. So basically a time limit that you got to get it done in this time.
Right, and even when it covers over the middle ground, you
still have a little bit of time.
Have so much time before it kills you.
Exactly. And I mean, all credit, those were great mechanics.
Absolutely.
Those were
stuff
really good
that
mechanics.
actually makes the encounter more difficult as opposed to just ending it like A+ all the way.
Yeah, totally.
That's their problem with Savage at this point, is it's literally like, if you don't make the DPS by this point, it's over, no matter how well you know the mechanics and all of that stuff.
That's why it's Savage, Nika, and not kindergarten, okay?
Okay, sorry.
Okay, and also we have a caller on the line. We have Van Ash of Ultros.
Hey, what's up, Van Ash? How's it going?
Pretty good. Just wanted to call in and talk about the idea of the metagame.
Yeah, let's continue this conversation. So what do you feel qualifies as the meta? Do you feel like our definition has been fair so far?
Pretty much, yeah. But the true definition I've had been told to me since I started like playing TCGs, video games at any level, really, was that it's the metagame is the aspect of the game which is affected by you externally, nothing else. So what you decide to bring to the raid, do you decide to bring the Dark Knight, do you decide to bring the Warrior, the healers, and whatever you bring is part of the metagame.
Okay, so
because going on the sort of little definition I gave at the beginning, right? In the world of Eorzea, right, when it's like, hey, we have a call to arms, fucking Savage Coil, Alexander's rising up out of the lake, let's go, guys, and the paladin starts to grab his sword, someone in there would go, no, not you. We're gonna go with the Dark Knight because you can't do as much damage. You know what I mean? Like you just grab your friends and you go.
Right.
So anything outside of that doesn't fit into the game world like that. That is metagame.
Right. Well, I agree with all of the definitions of what metagaming is. But I also kind of feel like it's a little bit more multifaceted than just what you select to bring to the raid, right? Like it's a little bit more involved in terms of like what community perception is, because shows like this, Twitch streams, Reddit, official forums, all of these things are external factors outside of the game that do influence people's perceptions of what happens inside of the game. So people can be choosing, like people hear the show and they hear a bunch of people going, oh, paladins suck, and they stop taking paladins to things. I think that's actually another aspect of the metagame.
That's meta, yeah. Mob mentality. Like you don't experience it yourself. You hear from somebody else and you run with it. And whether they're right or wrong, that doesn't matter. The fact is you're already influenced by that, and you're going to create a party around that and not take paladins and take a warrior instead because DPS is king. No, that's not always the case, because survivability is also really important too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's also an important idea to understand, is that actually, the meta is completely defined by the community. The community decides what is going to be the strongest, and in their perception, right? So if they believe that the paladin is absolute crap, why the hell would you take a paladin? Because it's absolute crap. Even though I think some point on the line we're going to find out, oh, hey, maybe the paladin is actually better than taking the Dark Knight.
Well, yeah, I totally agree that in time that perception is going to swing back a little bit. Yep. Yeah, when we start being able to do things like single tank, certain floors of Alex Savage, because we are going to get to that point when we're at 3.4. We're going to, Alex Savage is still going to be semi-relevant content for people. There were still people going back and doing turns of coil. So yeah, and this is what I keep saying with gear and progression. As the gear checks, get a little less steep, then we're going to be able to do things like bring paladins along to those things.
And stupid. You shouldn't have to wait until you outgear something before you can bring a paladin.
You know what, Nika? That's the meta
right now.
That's the meta.
The job needs an adjustment.
Then I say instead of waiting for that, waiting for your DPS to catch up, I'd say have your DPS adjust now. Get your healers. I mean, I'm always a fan of healers doing DPS and tanks doing DPS. But it sounds like the problem you're running into now is if you're hitting in rages and you're bringing a paladin, to switch to warrior is one move. But I think it'd be better as a group to adjust the rest of the group. Have your DPS push out more damage somehow. Figure out a way for your healers to do more damage as well.
I like that mentality, but I don't feel like the defensive capabilities that Paladin brings to the table and to the raid enable that kind of gameplay at the moment.
Yeah, I know, and that's a good point. I do agree with that.
What about? Well, hold on, because he definitely has a point. I recall one of the very first times I ever did any kind of raid was in World of Warcraft, and our main tank was like vastly outgeared our off tank, and we got to, it was the final boss in shit, I can't remember what the fuck it was, but our main tank just couldn't cut it. Like he just same point, just every single time, just kept failing and failing and failing. So we switched it with the off tank, right? And he did it just fine. He's like, what the fuck wasn't I doing, right?
Right.
And they started talking about how he switched up his rotation. He just basically flipped around like 2 abilities in his rotation.
Yeah.
And it made all the difference.
Yeah.
You know? And it wasn't anything that he would have like thought about. You know, he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, what he's done with everything else, but it just wasn't working.
Right.
And maybe all Nick has to do, if it's literally 1%, like 1%, maybe, you know, the raid takes me, you know, they take 5-10 minutes and they find a way to heap all of their cooldowns on, you know, at the exact same time, you know, at one point where it's safe to push, you know, right at this point, you know, really, really push out your DPS.
Right.
And that's part of the challenge. You know,
Right.
you can't just go in every time and be like, all right, everybody just do your optimal DPS. There has to be ways that you can overlap or look at each other's rotations and find ways that they synergize better with each other than doing it individually.
That's
trick attack damage.
I agree, but I feel like this game isn't built for a lot of that. Like, I'm not saying there's not some of that possible, but with the way that it's like, if you do your rotation exactly like this every single time, you will get the best DPS. That's the way the game is currently built.
That is, in theory, the way that it's currently built. Because if me and Juxta do that, right? Like, if me and him go in and we're like, all right, we're going to do our optimal DPS. Guess what? Within the first 5 seconds, we are both putting up trick attack, and it's wasted. Whereas when we communicate with each other, your trick attack time just doubled.
Hey, that wonderful point. Great point, Kahlo.
That's an adjustment. Yeah,
that's and a lot of it comes down to communication and maximizing what you're getting out of the abilities that you're putting up. A lot of
don't
fights.
bring 2 ninjas. How about not bringing 2 ninjas?
Well, that too.
That's blasphemy.
No, you need double trick attack damage.
Double trick attack damage.
But the thing is, though, most of the fights in this game don't require that level of perceptiveness and attentiveness.
For the mechanics, no. But
Right.
when you have DPS checks, you know, what if the difference is your ninja throws up trick attack, and then after trick attack's gone, then your dragoon throws up, what is it, Blood of the Dragon? What's the crit buff?
I don't remember.
Yeah, Battle Litany. You know, they throw it up afterwards. Wouldn't Battle Litany benefit you more during trick attack?
Oh, yeah.
It's all about stacking.
Well, I mean, ideally, yes, you want to stack the buffs, but I mean, it depends. You know, certain phases in certain fights.
True,
I mean,
and that's what it comes down to. If
That's
it's
the meta.
1%,
Exactly. Yep.
Figure out where you can find that 1%.
Right.
Yeah, obviously changing to warrior, that's one way to get it.
Right.
But there has to be another way somewhere.
But like here's here's the other one of the other thoughts that I had about this is that when it comes to progression rating, isn't that a specific end of the game that the highest tier, the bleeding edge player is really going for? And when you're playing at that level, with other games, there's just some characters that you can't use. Like
That's true. You can't use Dan in Street Fighter.
If you're playing competitively or at a high elite level in Super Smash Brothers or Street Fighter or anything else, there are certain characters, whether because of how they're designed, whether they're so cheap that they can't, that they're overpowered. There are these considerations that exist in other games that exist in the metagame. So is it so unfair that Paladin, at least for the short term, is kind of not as sought after for things like Savage Alexander?
Paladin is Pichu.
Pichu Paladin.
The point I want to make is just because something's not impossible doesn't mean that it doesn't need an adjustment or that it isn't, less than.
Well, wait a minute. I remember a time back in T5 when T5 was just starting to be cleared where it was absolutely sin to take a fucking warrior to that fight. It was absolute sin to take a warrior.
And you know what? I don't remember Nika being like, warriors need to be fixed. Fixed warriors.
I've never heard that, so I guess I don't know what I'm talking about.
I remember
most people dual tank Paladin Warrior, but I solo tank.
I remember us taking a moment to watch a video of a warrior tank or solo tank. I don't know if it's solo tank, but a warrior win T5. Main tanking. It was warrior main tank. And because this perception changes all the time. It always
absolutely
shifts.
Yeah, and actually that's the difference too between the analogy that you gave for our game and for fighting games is fighting games aren't normally updated obviously the same way that MMOs are. You make the fighting game, you put it out, and I don't know how much they actually adjust crap like that.
Once every quarter or so.
Yeah, but not
if they're continuing to update it, which they usually stop after a year or two.
Yeah, which obviously for an MMO, you don't want people to stop playing their jobs. You want things to stay.
The old way that used to happen is that they would have to make and issue an entirely new arcade cab. So the fact that they can push an update every quarter is, I think, a way better, way better way for them to be able to fix that and to keep up with their community. So like that, I think that all of it is that's all fair and valid, but. Just because this metagame exists, I don't think that Nika's wrong when she says that the job needs adjustment.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that she's necessarily wrong, but because of points brought up today, I think I'm kind of getting off the Paladin needs fixed boat, because it does take less damage than Dark Knight and Warrior, right?
Okay, listen. This is where I'm going with that. Just because something's not impossible doesn't mean that it doesn't need a fix. Now listen, I have cleared 1 and 2 as a Paladin. It is clearly possible. However, there are some groups who are deciding between a Paladin and a Warrior, and you say, yes, Paladin has more defensive buffs, sure. But the thing is that Warriors aren't dying to the tank busters. There is no point where you need the Paladin. Like if you can take a Dark Knight and a Warrior and they can survive and do more damage, it's clear which choice people would rather take in that aspect.
But Samus made a really good counterpoint to that earlier, and that is if you take a Warrior, that Warrior overall is going to be taking more damage, forcing the healer to focus more on healing and less on DPS. So there's going to be a net DPS.
I agree, but
for the DPS that you're gaining from Warrior, you might be losing it from the healers.
Okay, what about this fact?
You're right. But I don't think that the disparity is that big. Like, yes, I think that with my defensive cooldowns, my Scholar can do a little more DPS, but I don't think the healing loss from having a Warrior is that much of a difference, and I think you end up with more net DPS in the long run with Warrior.
So what happens then if they buff Paladin, right? And now Paladin can deliver DPS on par or near what a Warrior can, but they also take less damage, so we stop taking Warriors now because Paladins
I'm not asking for Paladin DPS buff. I'm asking for a change in the way that they do raids so that Paladins can be made to do what they're there to do, which is defense. And as of right now, there isn't a fight that utilizes Paladin to its best defensive capability.
That's fair, and I can actually respect that. You don't necessarily need Paladin to be buffed, but you want the way that hard and rage timers have been, the hard and rages have been implemented to change. I respect that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's fair because not as many people are as critical of those hardened rages, and they just tend to want to blame it on one of the members of the party or a performance issue. And
it's never just one though. It's never just one.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another fucking metagame issue too. People are like, well, if we don't meet the enrage timer, well, let's blame one of the 4 DPS. Let's blame the 4 DPS because it's only on them. Well, no, that's not true because it's on the rest of the group. Maybe the healers are not managing their mana, so there's more uptime on Ballad instead of foes, or the healers aren't doing as much DPS because they have a Warrior instead of a Paladin, and there's so many things that are connected to it that it's very, very difficult to nail down.
Totally.
It's impossible unless you sit down and have a conversation, hammer it out for 1 hour, and then go in and do an attempt, and then it's another 1%. Okay, where do we need to fix it? Right.
So, well, assuming that you can get to that 1% and there's no mistakes earlier in the run. Yeah, that is a lot of time and consideration.
I'd like to clear something up for the chat right now because some people seem to think that Nika is calling for raid nerfs.
No.
And that's not what she's saying. Basically, and I'm with her on this one. What the problem is with a lot of the raids right now is that they have hard enrage timers, which basically means after you know the mechanics, all it is a DPS check. And if you can't do high enough DPS, you just lose. Period.
It's a timer. There's a timer.
It's a timer.
There's a timer that's ticking down.
And that's not as fun as putting in soft enrage timers that actually make it more difficult, such as rails going away, such as the arena getting smaller, or maybe even persistent AoE damage that doesn't go away.
Kind of like ADS in turn 2.
Yeah, if you don't have DPS checks, you can actually make the mechanics harder. And I feel like when I look at what Paladin is a defensive tank, and we talk back about about the different strategies, like I really loved T9. Granted, it was very, very mechanical and jump ropey once you learn the mechanics. But when you look at the different strategies, you could take 2 tanks and do it the 2 tank way, or you could utilize Paladin for what it's there for. It's good defense and solo tank it. Yeah. And you can do either of those, and they're extremely valid. But when you look at it now, everyone just needs DPS because that's literally the hardest mechanic is DPS. And when the hardest mechanic is DPS, that really takes away the fun and the challenge of it. And then it kicks a lot of jobs out to the curb who just can't quite reach that DPS check.
And one of our main criticisms of this game is that there's not enough dynamics in terms of fight mechanics. And, this, I think that this just sort of speaks to that, is that, it's another area where the fights are lacking dynamics. And for a game that already lacked dynamics, right, to go from the possibilities that you had in T9 of doing, a single tank or a double tank strategy, and then to cut that down even farther to say, well, no, you can't even have that. You've got to have a hard DPS check. You're going to have tank swaps. You need 2 tanks, and everyone's got to be pumping out DPS. That's an entirely different, almost development strategy, and I don't know that it's the most healthy for your endgame players. You're
pigeonholing your players into playing a certain way or bringing a certain group.
Well, what I sort of feel like what that does, yes, there are those very, very motivated and driven people like Elysium that are going to want to clear this stuff, and Lucrezia and all of those really, high end raids. But I feel like this is a way to keep a lot of the regular community that sort of exists in that middle ground between just logging in and doing tomes every day and spending all of their time on raiding and savage and progression, that it just forces those players to wait longer to be able to
absolutely
get into it and to clear it.
If you can't get in and clear something because you keep hitting that enrage timer, but you're doing everything perfect,
right?
What need or what drive do you have to keep trying when the only answer is, I need more gear?
Right.
That, to me, that's bad game design. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be able to just go in with shitty gear.
That's also bad gamer mentality, though, to wait for gear. I mean, maybe
that's true. Yeah,
and that's that to me.
But that's the mentality they're building in the players when all the hardest mechanic is the DPS check, and that I know, next week everyone's going to have their ESO weapons. You might as well just call it and wait till next week.
Nika, I totally think you're right. I think that is the mentality that Square Enix is reinforcing with the ways that they're choosing to develop the game. You're absolutely right.
And Artorias brings up a really good point in the chat, is I'm not sure how much you guys realize this, but for Paladin, we're talking about how it's great defensive capabilities, but I don't know if you realize that for the second tank buster, you have to use Hollow Ground or Paladins will die. And I feel like Hollow Ground is supposed to be their oh shit button that you can save to figure out when you need it to help your healers to survive, you use Hollow Ground. But in A1 Savage, if you don't use Hollow Ground in the second tank buster, it's over.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I just feel like that's bad game design, and that doesn't really utilize Paladin for its defense if it doesn't even have defensive moves to keep it alive.
No, I'm right there with you, Nika. I'm right. I get it, because
does every other tank have to use their
Hollow Ground equivalent to survive it?
I'm not entirely sure if they have to.
If so, then kind of a moot point.
Yeah, kind of.
But the thing is we're talking about Paladin having more defense, then that gives it the edge over the other classes.
What she's saying is, what if she needs it later?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Paladin should be allowed to use that Hollowed Ground move to give the healers a little bit of time to recover, but that's not really an option at this point.
No, they really feel like they're building encounters around using those homing and living dead.
You're right. Yes, I think that is very true, and also that. A lot of these structures are so rigid that the metagame doesn't even end up becoming a factor, because everyone is just you need this definitively, you need this, or you're gonna wipe.
The chat's confirming Dark Knights and Warriors, they've lived through those without needing to use those cooldowns.
Wow, that's weird.
Dude.
That's weird.
That is weird. By the way, I do want to thank Van Ash for the call from Ultro. Shout out to you. Thank you very much for adding to our metagame discussion.
And to go along with that, we have Alistor of Phoenix calling in.
Hey, what's up, Alistor? How's it going?
Hey, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for calling Limit Break Radio.
Oh, Oh, thank God. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. I wanted to call in last week, but I was having some issues, so thanks for accepting my call.
Good. Well, we're glad that you're able to call in. So, what would you like to add to our metagame discussion here?
Well, I've been thinking about this. I keep bringing it up, and people either just dismiss it or sort of like laugh at me. But the big issue here is Raw being overpowered, and one of the things I really hate about them is that they've got both Storm's Eye and Storm's Path to themselves, which makes them almost irreplaceable in that aspect. So
I agree.
Would it be too game breaking if Paladin got Storm's Path, because they're the defensive one, and
maybe not specifically that it like Storm's Path itself, but something similar, much in the ways that a lot of our different debuffs among the different jobs give different bonus. You know, like Monk has Dragon Kick, and
because Warrior gets overall damage down and slashing debuff, whereas Paladins just get strength down, and 95% of the moves in Savage are magic.
Right.
So it's like Paladin is even more useless in that case.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Would it be a problem if you just would it be a problem if you just switched Halloween and Storm's Path? Like, would that be too much of a change, or?
See, I feel like it should have been like that in the first place, because when Warrior gets the slashing down, that helps. Now it helps Warriors, Dark Knights, and Ninjas. Plus, if they had the strength down, I think that would be a nice balance. Give Paladin the overall damage down, and I think that would be fair.
That would make more sense.
They're supposed to be the defensive tank, aren't they? So I just thought, like, thematically and all that.
No, I think that's a very compelling point there, Alistair. That thematically, it seems like those two abilities are switched around. But I mean, in terms, I think Warriors would be very remiss to lose that ability or to have that ability switched.
That was probably a bad design, but what can they do about it now?
Well, I think what you could do is, because the strength down, it's not a bad debuff, but it's just currently not that relevant. Let's make that a little bit more relevant. And then what's Nika? What's kind of the other combo that you end up using? Is there another combo that you can use? I don't even know.
As Paladin?
Well, Paladin has its DPS. Well, it has its dot finisher and it has its DPS finisher. It has Royal Authority, which is just a damage move, but it, with Shield Oath and all that stuff. Like, Warriors can swap into their DPS stance, pop their big moves, and swap back. Paladins are stuck using either trying to tank in Sword Oath, which is shit,
well, fuck it.
or using Royal Authority with the 20% damage down from Shield Oath.
Why not? Well, then why not just add something to the straight DPS move that also adds a debuff? I mean, it seems like, because even with Dark Knights, between there's 3 different combos that you kind of switch between, but the 2 that are mainly there for putting out DPS, one comes with a bit of an HP drain on it if you've got a Dark Side up, and then the other one comes with a debuff.
That would be nice. Yeah, we've got one that's a DOT and then one that's just straight damage.
Yeah, you guys know what we're doing right now? We're metagaming.
Look at that.
Thank me later, bitches. look at the thought.
Okay, but see, this is what I wonder then. How much is this a metagame? Because it's not something the game currently has already changed. Like, it's not something I can go in the game and be like, okay, I'm going to change my Paladin to have these moves. I can't do that. So is that really a metagame?
No, but you yourself, you're right. You can't take what we're talking about and going and changing it. But all the people that are listening to us, if this starts to, go around and it gets big enough and the devs, catch wind of it and they actually think, oh, yeah, you know what? That does make sense. But maybe we should make some type of change like that.
But this is exactly why I had brought up what the devs' role is in this. Because as we've pointed out, even with other games like TCGs or single-player games, that the developers do have a role to play in this.
Perfect example. When certain cards get overpowered in Magic the Gathering, for example, the company will purposefully, or when they get too pricey, they will purposefully flood the market with those cards to kill it.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly, and it's that kind of
that's like nerfing in our game when something gets nerfed,
right? And for as much as us sitting around and talking about this and parsing all of that out is our version of the metagame, what the developers have to do to react to what the community's doing is their own separate version of the metagame.
The metagame in an MMO is a longer game than what you're used to in a fighting game,
which I think brings us to a really good point in the conversation where we then ask the question, where do we fit into this picture as a podcast? Where do we, on the official forums or Reddit or anywhere else, where do we fit into this metagame equation?
I feel like this should have a different name. Like metagame to me is what is inside the game, but when we start talking about
no, that's completely the opposite.
Like the meta real life or something.
Metagame is outside of the game,
but it's what you can take to the game and then change within the game. But we can do nothing about what we're talking about right now.
Right now,
individually, no.
And because we don't have the controls over the rules, no, we can't do anything about it. That's why I was saying that the developers also have a part to play in this as well.
All right, let's call it massively metagaming then. Is that better, Nika? We'll call it the MMG.
My definition is then taking what you hear from the outside and then being able to take those rules and changing how you play. We can't do that. That's what I always assumed was metagame. But we can't take what we're talking about and change within the game until we yell at the devs enough to make them change. So that's just like meta bitching or something.
You don't change the rules. You change your
strategy within the rules. But we can't do that in this game because the rules are so rigid that what we're talking about isn't something
you're changing from paladin to warrior.
That's changing.
You're changing. You're not physically changing game mechanics.
Change paladin to make it better. There's nothing I can do to paladin to change it.
You can become a warrior.
You become not as an individual player. You can take the stuff you hear outside, and say that you can't change the warrior, the paladin job itself, but you can tell your party to do more damage. You can tell your bard to play foes more often. You can.
Right, I agree. That's part of the meta. But when you talk about just using the forums to yell at the devs, that to me sounds like a different separate thing.
This is my favorite chat comment from Crimson Yuka.
That's slightly different.
Meta just sounds like a stupid thing someone came up with to make themselves sound smart. That's my new definition of the metagame.
Samus, is that true? Did you just make this whole thing up to make yourself sound really smart?
Totally.
I thought that's all.
He figured it out.
I was gonna say, isn't that just what your podcast is about? Is making yourself seem smart?
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. I can get into that.
The fucked up thing is people like it though. People listen, so why not?
Hey
because
guys,
they want to sound smart.
Guys. Talking about the metagame, we're metagaming about the metagame. Because we're talking about
mind blown.
Metaception.
Oh god.
Right, so then
blow your mind.
So then then when you look at things like the official forums and people who bitch at things and eventually the developers see it and change it, none of that is actually like something you're doing within the game. So is that still part of the meta game, or is it like the meta overarching universe?
It's still the meta game because it affects the game.
Yeah, well, I
think it's a broader definition or like a broader version of it, though.
Well,
right?
that's why I was asking where we, as podcasts, as forums, as Reddits, as users and individuals and mobs and packs, whatever. Where exactly do we fall into this whole spectrum? Because that's the thing, is that we put stuff out there and it does end up impacting opinions. It does end up impacting sentiment in the community. It does end up impacting development overall in the long term.
So are you saying that as community figures, do we have a responsibility to the metagame?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because what a lot of people want to do is they want to foist that responsibility all onto their shoulders. And that just to me is just ego stroking yourself to say, oh, well, the things that I put out into the community really matter so much. And they really actually don't. I mean, there are ways that ideas can take root and take hold. I mean, just look at the proliferation of Get Good in this community. Okay? Like, most people say it and they have no fucking idea where it originated from. And that's part of the meta too. All of that fits in. So yeah, I mean, I think let's maybe take a second and consider this. Maybe the things that we do put out there have an effect that we don't intend, and sometimes it can be negative.
Part of the LBR meta is Nutter's gonna nut.
No,
just
that's
because somebody, it's like it's so weird that this is like above and beyond video games. I think this is just life in general. Like if somebody tells you to do better at what you're doing as a sign of encouragement, saying, hey, you're on the right track, but do better. Work on it a little bit more.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah, constructive criticism. People get fucking angry. People get really upset. Like that's why get good is so offensive to people. Like they don't fucking get it. You say get good, endearingly, of course. You're telling them, hey, practice a little bit more, study your rotation, learn the game a little bit better, learn your job better. And they're like, no, fuck you. I'm doing it just fine. It's like, no, you're not doing it.
You're actually not.
I'm a unique snowflake, and my feelings matter.
My $12 matters.
And I'm going to use Fracture on Paladin, damn it.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
But
jeez.
But seriously though, I mean, like we do recognize that what we put out into the community does have a way of taking root and taking hold. But I just don't feel like that kind of consideration needs to impact our content. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I don't.
I think that's where like officially we stand when we talk about people want to call us pillars of the community or put all of this responsibility onto us that we don't really want or accept. And
I'm fine being called a pillar of the community, and I'm even fine if that our actions affect stuff, but I don't think that we then have any kind of moral obligation or responsibility to then construct around our show like this is how it should be.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. We probably do have a little bit of that power, but we're still just going to do whatever the fuck we want to do.
Yeah, totally. And that's part of the fun of running the show. I mean, like that's what's kind of fun for us. And so do other places other than the podcast and the official forums and what we would all consider, I don't know, what we would maybe consider on its outset to be bitching. What are some other places where the external ends up influencing what is in the game? I mean, I think that very, very noticeable community folks like Happy, like Ms. Tech, Joe Never, all of those.
Wish Joe was here.
All of those people, the things that they put out there do have a way of catching hold and resonating with people, and then people end up telling it to us, or it all has a way of sort of like permeating not just the community that's engaged with us or with that content, but the entire community at large. And I'm just kind of curious what, is there actually some kind of responsibility intrinsic in that?
And then you start tanking Bone Dragon in the north.
Oh, damn, I was going to make that joke earlier, but I couldn't get it in.
Hide him.
Yeah.
That's what she said. All right, anyway, real quick before we move on, Alistair actually wanted to make a second point about being salty about summoners.
Okay, Alistair, go ahead. Let's hear about Summoner.
Well, the thing is, I know summoners are good. I've not really got a problem with how they perform or anything like that, but ever since before the first patch, well, not before, after they announced they weren't getting any pets, I've been really disappointed with how they are in this game since then, because I just think they're really poor, like, actual summoning classes, because even before they announced we weren't getting any new pets, it was mostly just summoning Garuda.
Mm-hmm.
You had Titan, no one used that. If it hardly used that except for, I think, second car, was it? And then I was really excited for a new pet for 3.0, and then they announced they weren't going to get in it, and I just thought, their class is summoner, they summon things. I thought it would have been more interested to get a new pet, and apparently the reason they didn't put it in is because it was too much work, which I thought was a bit bullshit.
Yeah, that's a bit of a cop out. Yeah, I'm totally with you there, Alistair.
It's it's too much work to make a new raid, too much work to make a new dungeon. Why even bother with any of that?
Well,
so it's just sorry. It's just I don't play Final Fantasy XI, but watching those videos made it even harder to see them in this game, because
salt in the wound. It goes back to what Aniro was saying earlier when we were talking about the changes to Bard and how we play jobs that we associate with because they feel like something, and that's probably some of the biggest salt
Yeah.
in the game right now, is
Absolutely.
that true summoners don't feel like they're summoners.
They're biomages.
You're totally.
warlocks.
I totally understand this, and I think that there are kind of two camps of people that sort of there's two sort of binary splits of people that feel a certain way about summoner, and that is that they're either not summonery enough in terms of like the aesthetics from the old Final Fantasy games, and that it doesn't pay as good of an homage to the lineage of a summoner, because the idea of a summoner goes back in the series for a long time. There's a deep history of that job within Final Fantasy, and then there are the other people who look at the things that summoners got, like Akmorn, and kind of like the channeling of Bahamut into you, and that way of being able to kind of explain summoning and what summoners do, as
summoning
opposed
strengths of those things as opposed to those things
as opposed to a straight avatar, right? So like I get that there are people who are actually really into that concept, and so I agree that people who may have identified it with that job in the past are going to struggle with really connecting to what it is right now.
Well, how many pets were viable in 11? I know you had about, was it 13 or 11 or something?
Well,
like that?
in 11, they weren't used in the same sense that you use them in 14, where like you summon Garuda or whatever, or even with scholars, having Eos or whatever the other one is out. You actually use them as abilities. So if you wanted to haste the party, you brought Garuda out and you hasted the party. If you wanted to give people phalanx, you brought Fenrir out and you gave it to the party. If you wanted to do an ice move, you brought Shiv out, you did it, you dismissed her. So you were constantly shifting through them, and the pet itself didn't matter as much as the ability that you were using.
I think that they really worked themselves sideways to be able to throw a summoner into this game. Like, there's a pet job is not. I don't think that this game was really built with it.
They're just utilizing the pets the wrong way.
I don't know.
But it's okay. It's okay. Summoners rejoice because you will get to glamour your pet soon.
I still say that they should have, from the ground up, had like Bio 2. That should have been Ifrit Burn. Bio should have been like Drowsy from...
you mean like attach it a little bit more to lore?
Have it be like Final Fantasy IV Callers, where they come out, they do an attack, and then they're gone. Just like how Bahamut's or Dreadworm's stance is. They shoot an Akmor, and then it's gone.
Well, and in that case, they would have operated how they did in 11. You just would have been streamlining it and taking out the whole summoning, desummoning part.
Because it would just be kind of intrinsic in the animation. But how cool would that have been to like summon a portal, and then Ifrit's arm comes through and fire?
I know a lot of summoners that would be a lot more. Well, maybe they wouldn't, because then you know what they'd suffer from? Dragoon syndrome. Why isn't our thing following us around? I need to have a pet.
And then Square Enix should just show them the design documents for what our current summoner is.
So what would summoner players want now then? Do they want more interaction with their pets so that they have more shit to micromanage?
Apparently they want bigger pets.
Bigger pets. Alistair, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
All right. So as a summoner, what would you want? What do you want from the job?
On behalf of all summoners, state your opinion.
No pressure.
Speak for everyone.
Well,
pressure.
I'd have at least wanted a new pet for this new quest. So a whole new set of skills. I don't know if people generally prefer being the support for the pet or the pet being the support for the summoner. But I think that could be part of the thing itself. Like, this new pet could be, I don't know, more supportive or more offensive than Garuda is currently, or Ifrit. And I just think it's a really big missed opportunity. And the thing that gets me really angry, apparently in the Summoner Crest, they tease new eggies, don't they? But then they take them away.
Oh, they do.
Here's a thought. What about making summoners, and to add along to your idea of having more pets for summoners? What about the idea of making summoners based around the elements? So, for example, you can summon Leviathan, which is extra effective against Ifrit. and then you can have, you can summon Ifrit.
Ah, man, putting an elemental wheel back in this game. Oh no. Not in this game. That was something that was big in 11.
But summoner specific.
That would be hard. I feel
it would be really hard. I think
because they'd either have to completely change the way Black Mage works, or they'd have to make Summoner a very interesting and weird job.
Yeah, bite your tongue, Sam.
Yeah, get out.
Anyway, thank you very much for the call, Alistair, and talking not only about the metagame, but as well as bringing some summoner metagame and some summoner metagame discussion onto the show. So we appreciate that. If you'd like to be a caller to Limit Break Radio, send a Skype message to the Skype account Limit Break Radio, or call 810-515-8715. Again, I'm just going to kind of throw this out there. Do notable, let's call them community figures or organizations, do they play a role in the metagame?
We know that they do because, even as far back as when we did LBR for FF11, we knew that the community team members or whatever, listened to us and they interacted with us. And from 11 into 14, Square-Enix or the development team that we have now they open up so much more. Could you imagine when we played 11 the idea of a developer live letter?
No, oh god, no.
What?
Remember when those shits when those things started, I was blown away. I couldn't believe that was coming up.
Somebody cares.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing that they ever told us was oh, you found a way to beat AV, we're changing that. That's not how we wanted you to beat him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, totally. Well, and it's kind of funny that the live producer letters have gone from these things that were clearly recorded in the office corner, and now that they've got backdrops. Sometimes Yoshi has a podium. They've actually become really kind of big deals.
Yeah.
Which I feel like they started as damage control for an absolute horrific launch of an MMO.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which was the same team as 11, and you can see why that didn't translate over very well.
Right. Well, it was really as soon as Yoshi P came in, because Tanaka never did a live fucking letter.
Nope.
But here's the thing, to my knowledge, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but neither do other MMOs. Except for obviously big giant things like BlizzCon, for example. Yeah, we expect that.
No.
But are there other MMOs that would reliably, once a month or more, release actual footage like that?
I think ESO does some of that, and they have weekly community things where they'll show off fan art from the community and talk about that kind of stuff, and they keep people updated.
Okay, no, that's cool because as a WoW player, all I ever read, it was just patch notes. I never got to see I don't know his real name, but Ghostcrawler, the guy who was leading WoW, and I don't know if he still is or not. But they would only ever release like forum shit, but they never actually got on video and did cool stuff like what they do.
Right. Well, but
it's also a new day and age in MMOs now, I think. I mean, WoW was the first pioneer MMO of its kind, and the whole social media streaming and stuff wasn't as big as it is now.
Right. But I mean, God, don't you guys remember sitting around and getting frustrated? Man, it would be really nice to just ask Square Enix this question and get a definitive answer.
Yep.
Well, the MMOs, the games, the community teams that are responsive on that level, it's always for MMOs that have smaller populations. So the ones that aren't maybe as good or as big, they usually have much to compensate for that. They have really, really attentive community teams that do a lot of interaction.
That's true.
For example,
the official WoW forums, they have specific moderators specifically for that actually interact with that. That's their job. Just interact with the forum.
I'm thinking back to City of Heroes. City of Heroes, for that community, the developers of that game would constantly go on podcasts like Woot Studios and talk to them, talk to their community a little bit more directly than than someone like Square Enix is. Now, granted, Square Enix is a Goliath company that you can't really expect that kind of stuff out of, but the fact that they've moved more towards this and they are doing things like live letters, and you're right, Kahlo, WoW doesn't do any of that shit. Blizzard doesn't do any of that shit. A lot of the bigger population MMOs don't have that kind of community development in place, and you got to give Square Enix even more credit because they're having to do it amongst multiple fucking languages. That is so impressive. That is, I mean, they actually put a lot of man hour into communicating with their community, and they have to be given all the credit in the world. I know that we criticize them a lot, but they have to be given all the credit in the world when they do stuff right.
I'm sorry. Just a little aside. I need to call Alistair out. Apparently, Alistair isn't a level 60 summoner. He's not even a summoner. He started.
That's fair, though. He said he's a frustrated observer.
He started leveling Arcanist and stopped when he realized there wasn't going to be a new pet.
Oh, okay.
Well. So do we just throw everything out that we just talked about?
He's speaking on behalf of all summoners.
Think about it. That's part of the meta. You realize there's a cool job you really want to play, but then you realize how much it isn't what you're expecting.
Oh, suddenly Nika's a pro on the meta, guys.
You're trying to diss it when I'm saying that's exactly what you've been trying to talk about this entire time.
Nika.
It's just fun to give you shit.
There's another point about metagaming that we never touched on. But this was, what we just talked about, how what we know outside the game affects our experience inside the game.
Yeah.
Another part of meta that I was thinking about was the expectations that we set for ourselves when we're in the game. It's kind of connected to like get good and always the conversation between casuals and hardcore raiders, where people take they bring their personalities from outside of the game, and it affects what happens to them inside the game. So I'll give you an example. Using the example earlier about when we endearingly tell people to get good, most people they get fucking angry. They snap back at us, telling us to fuck off, saying that
they
we
get
have
defensive.
No right. Yeah, they get defensive. Now, another part of meta gaming, I think, is why do people feel like that? Why do people get so angry inside the game? Like when you're playing, when you're running a dungeon with complete strangers and they tell you, hey, try doing this differently, and they snap at you. They get really fucking angry. But when you're at work or when you're at school and somebody tells you, hey, try doing this differently, you take it differently.
Yeah, you sort of take it in stride. Well, I mean,
it's the internet.
Well, I think that's part of it.
A lot of it. That's a lot of it.
It's internet, but maybe it's outside the game too. I'm convinced that there's some shit outside the game that makes people so angry inside the game. Like me, when people, like when I stream, people bitch at me, people yell at me, people tell me how bad I'm doing all the time, but I never get upset. I absorb all of it, and I'd like to think that I've gotten a better. I've become
energy into chi.
I've become
rage boners.
That's racist. Are you saying that I'm Asian and I have chi? Just because I'm Asian, I have chi?
Oh, that was great.
Now you're gonna tell me that I need kung fu. Now you're telling me that I'm good at kung fu. Now you're gonna tell me I'm good at kung fu.
I don't know. You're kind of a bigger dude. I feel like you would be more sumo style.
What?
There we go. Fat shaming, bro. Now you're fat shaming. I'm gonna go tweet about this. So to bring it back, it's the personalities that people bring outside their experience outside, like whatever it is. If you're at your job, I'm sure most people are at school or they go to work. If somebody gives them constructive criticism and say do it differently, most of them would probably be like, hey, you know what, this person's right. They might have more experience, or
most
they're in a.
Don't do that though. Like there are even people who get offended for the other people you're trying to correct. Like I've done some duty finders before where I'll be there as paladin and I'll see the black mage who's literally like spamming Blizzard. I'm like, hey, and I try to give them all my credentials too. I'm like, my main DPS is black mage. Let me tell you a little bit about the rotation, and I will take 5 minutes to sit there and write it all up for them. And everyone else goes, you're the paladin, shut up and do your job. And I was like, are you serious right now? Like, I'm trying to help our whole entire party, and as well as help someone who might not understand the job. And you're going to sit there and the entire party yells at me. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Nika, I am getting very offended that you even tried to do that.
I'm sorry. I tried to help someone. I thought it was nice.
Nika, we're just here to do the dungeons. Just shut up and do your job, please.
Yeah.
So
I just want to,
GPS.
I don't want to try. I just want to collect my ESOs and get the fuck out of here.
And people say that, but I feel like me as someone who knows the job better than someone else, I almost feel like it's my obligation to try to help someone who doesn't understand. And they get mad at me for that.
No. Your inclination is not wrong.
Nika is a social justice warrior.
No, Nika, that's what you bring to the game, right? Because of what you do outside of LBR and video games, like it's in your nature to do that because of that's what you do. That's what you're used to on a daily basis.
Is that the Nika metagame?
Maybe to be helpful and nice to people. Maybe.
I don't know if that counts. Does that count?
I think so.
She's not even sure now. Now she's just questioning everything. Before it was like, that's not meta. That's not meta. Now she's like, is it? Is it meta?
I have no idea what's meta anymore.
It's meta life.
It is. It's meta life. Well, I mean, it's true. I'm a teacher in real life, too. I like to help people. I teach people for a living.
Are these scissors meta? I don't even know anymore.
Well, we gotta talk about how we can utilize the scissors in an appropriate manner.
You shouldn't run with them, for example.
Good metagaming. All right. We also have a new caller on the line. We have a Kare Alasichi of Goblin on the line.
Wow, you smoked that name.
Butchered that.
Wow.
How do you know?
That was...
okay, well, let's ask them.
Yes.
Carla, how do you say your name?
Kari.
Alkanashi.
One more time?
Alkanashi.
Yeah,
you slaughtered that, dude.
There's no K in there at all.
No, dude, that was like a Sauron champagne pronunciation of that. That's what that was.
That was brutal. That was brutal. Anyway, thank you for calling the show. What would you like to talk about?
Sorry?
Oh, no, I was saying thank you for calling the show. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, when we were talking about Paladin earlier, it reminded me of one of my biggest fears for 14 that came out of my experiences in 11. Basically, the whole idea that if you're going to do some content, you have to be a specific job.
But is that concept really unfair, though? I think that for anyone who's pushing a certain edge of this game, that look, like in 11, I dealt with that a lot. Being a Dark Knight, come on, man.
You should have some sympathy towards
these
people.
No. I had a lot of firsthand experience with it, and there was just some shit that I did not get to do. Salvage was something.
I have a counter to that, though. Because I like the idea in certain games, and like in 11, with okay, you have to be versatile, you have to have different jobs to play different content. But when you look at 14, which has a token system where it forces you to focus on one job, like ESO, and the jobs you get, it's not even class specific, it's job specific. So like the Paladin specific gear I'm getting with ESO, say I have to switch for a different raid, it completely screws you over. So when you have a game that relies on a system where you have to focus into one job, then they say, oh, but that one job isn't useful in endgame raids, you're fucked. And I just don't think that's fair.
But the thing is, though, is that in 11, Dark Knights were never usable in pretty much never usable in salvage, or
anywhere.
There were shut up. There were there were some jobs that you just didn't take to shit, and you couldn't, and you wait. Hang on, and you couldn't till the very end of that game, until they started like loosening the requirements and everyone could do everything. Okay, so given that, I don't think that is what exists in this game. I think right now Paladins are undervalued because tight DPS checks are what are ruling the day in terms of our endgame raids. But as soon as those restrictions start to ease, as through gear or time levels, whatever it is, that they're not going to be completely viable or locked out of the system. It's not forever. It's for like 3 weeks, and it's for progression groups. And it's just not. It's not the exact same thing.
And also in 11, having one job and being forced to take up a whole another job is a huge undertaking. Compared to 14.
Yeah.
But not in terms of the gear.
Especially
when there's weekly lockouts, though. Like, yeah, I can level Warrior and Paladin, but my Warrior will still never be like, oh, I'll just play Warrior for some fights and Paladin for others, because all of my tomes have been put into Paladin. So now if I switch to Warrior, I'm like weeks and weeks and weeks behind.
That's only for ESOs, though. That's not for any of the gear that you're getting out of Savage. I mean,
for weapons too, though. The weapons are separate.
Okay,
so.
yeah, no, that's fair. That's
and
fair.
That's a
the
big
weapons
part
are
of your
separate.
DPS is your weapon.
So yeah, no. That's totally fair.
Right.
But,
so like, it can't be like I've done 1 and 2 on Paladin. Now I'm just going to switch to Warrior for 3 or something. I can't. I have to kind of now go back into Alexander for Warrior and build myself.
But it's not like there's absolutely no overlap there either, right? Like there is. I mean,
there's some.
Yeah, there is some, and especially like I think ESOs are a bit unique in the because they decided to put our job specific gear attached to tomes, and they didn't. I don't think they did that before.
Yeah, see, when I look in 11, I feel like it was a lot easier for me to be like, oh, I'll play Red Mage for this fight and Samurai for this one, because I got all my gear from like Dynamis, and I could just choose, especially with the way the systems worked. I could like pay my points for my link shell, and I could get that gear, and I could gear up all my jobs simultaneously. But when you have an ESO lockout system, you just can't do that.
You know what though? Pray that you're not in a game like World of Warcraft, Warcraft or Guild Wars 2, where you only get to be one job unless you make an entirely new fucking character.
That's true.
Yeah.
I've always praised the Final Fantasy MMOs for that.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to balance against that other games just completely did not address. I mean, WoW, like you said, just totally never even addressed that as an issue. You just fuck you. You have to start a new character.
Yeah, but and at least we've narrowed it down. At least in some of our opinions to it, not necessarily being a problem with Paladin itself, but with current raid design.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So
there's 3 points of view here. Then, like, it seems like one side wants to say that Paladin needs some adjustments. Other people are saying it's the game content, and then it might be me by myself saying that the rest of the group should figure out another way.
I think they're all viable.
They're all valid.
Neither is right or wrong.
Yeah, you could change raid design to fix it. You could change Paladin to fix it, or she could sit down, in theory craft with her group and find a way to fix it.
Try different strategies. Right. And the problem, and I think the problem with metagaming in general and like video game communities is that everyone pigeonholes into one thing, and that's what the whole fucking community runs into. Like that's where everyone goes. So somebody's the first one to suggest, oh, we need a nerf, or maybe a community leader says, oh, we need a nerf. That's the mentality of everyone. Whereas maybe in other games it's not quite like that. I can't think of an example, but I feel like in MMORPGs, when somebody's the first one to say, hey, they'll either pick the easiest route, which is saying nerf content,
right,
or, that's just the most popular opinion because that's just the easiest way to go.
Yeah.
The problem stems from when you do sit down and make new strategies and your group adjusts around it, and maybe it's doable, but then you realize, oh, if we just had different jobs, it wouldn't have been this hard. And I just feel like if that's the case, it comes down to just because something's not impossible doesn't mean it's really the best way you should be doing it.
Right.
So,
and it might be the best way for your group specifically because that's what you have. That's what you're bringing, that's what your party composition is.
Right.
So that's I think that's the fun of it. That's the fun of meta, saying, it's not going to work for everyone, but for your group, Nika, because you've got a paladin, get your healers to manage their mana better so that they can do more damage. Get your bard to,
But it just seems like I don't think any of the world's first groups in A1 Savage had a paladin, did they? And I feel like for our group trying to progress, I really don't want to say, okay, I'll just wait 3 weeks to be able to use a paladin.
Go in there the next time you raid, Nika, and you just tell everybody else to get good.
Well, no, but Nika, the thing is, though, is that you switching to warrior is a great example of the metagame because you are making the adjustment as the player. The problem exists within the class, which you're right. We only have so much wiggle room. There's only so much mathematically that we can do with what we're given, in our skill set, right?
Yeah, 'cause I think you can number crunch all day, and maybe the healer can do a little bit more DPS there. But then if you would have had a warrior instead, it still would have been a bigger DPS boost than having the paladin pop sentinel and the healer.
Absolutely, and again, I think that your observation that there isn't enough of a trade-off to bring a paladin is fair and apt. You know what I mean? Like that trade-off does not really exist, and so I think that is a strong indication that there is a problem. But we as a community should probably be considerate of what exists as an external problem and what exists as an internal problem and what we can do as players to get better individually. That's what the whole get good thing is all about. See, we can throw shit around like get good and then, spend 2.5 hours unpacking the whole shit with our buddy on a show. Like, we don't just throw it out there haphazardly. Right. We're actually taking the time to, like, a lot of this I think is the theory behind, where we come from as a show and what we put out there into the community and the attitude that we have towards other players and like the entire community as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Nika, maybe you should try just tanking the whole A1 Savage fight in Sword Oath. Have you tried that?
I've tried to go back and forth between the two, and it's very difficult.
No, just
you can't start out in Sword Oath, or you'll never keep hate.
Hello, Ninja. Shadewalker.
Shadewalk that
We
shit.
don't have a ninja in our group.
Oh, shame
my
on
God.
You see, you're losing by 1%. If you had a ninja, you'd be winning by 9%.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
That's trick attack.
Oh,
You're telling me the ninja can make up for as much damage as the
With
dragoons do
trick
when they
attack?
top parsers? I don't think so.
Oh my
my
gosh.
gosh.
Why is she even on this show?
So Kari, did that seem to put any of your fears that 14 could end up much like 11 and jobs go by the wayside left and right? Does that alleviate any of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, the way the devs have been working, I'm pretty certain we're not going to have what happened to 11 happen in 14. But then, of course, there's always the players.
Yeah.
But again, there's so much, not pigeonholing, but our classes are so much more defined now that it'd be a lot harder to make a job into something that's not. Like what happened with Ninja in 11.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's that rigidity that I think that has been built into 14, where, you know, I mean, the Holy Trinity is part of that, but there is this very rigid structure where, you know, you have a very clearly defined role within the group that you need to fill, and there's really there's not much wiggle room in terms of what the requirements are or what the expectations are of the group to be able to make the clear.
I'm going to be honest. I completely forgot that we had a caller and that he had even posed a question.
Wow,
I am so sorry, Carla.
Terrible.
Bad.
But Kari, thank you very much. Kari, thank you very much for your call. Greatly appreciate it, and thank you for adding to the metagame discussion. All right, let's kind of put an end cap on this discussion, and you know, where do you guys see the metagaming evolving as games continue to evolve and there become more communities around games? Because single player games are becoming more online experiences. There are, as we had mentioned, like things like TCGs and board games and things like that receive updates and version 2.0s and whatever over time. So as we see things that continue to develop like this, where does the metagame shift from here on out? Do we still continue to have the same role as only a critic, or is there some way to bring the audience in as a part of that and not have this gap that exists between the metagame, between the developer and the player base?
Samus?
I think people need to shitpost less so that there's less filter. There's less stuff to filter for the developers to go through. There's less garbage for them to go through.
That things are taken more seriously.
What I mean, imagine, from their point of view, how much bullshit they have to read through to get through and find something that's worth actually taking into consideration. Right.
Well, really, they can just bypass all that bullshit on the official forums and Facebook and stuff, and just listen to a podcast known as LBR for the real truths. Hashtag.
I remember back when I was playing WoW and reading stuff on the forums, and one of the developers had actually admitted to a change that they ended up implementing. And there was one post that suggested it. Like, out of everything that they've ever talked to anyone or seen anyone, there was just one post that ever mentioned it. Among these sea of posts, we're all clamoring for something else, and they're like, that's all it took, because it was a good idea.
Yeah.
That one thing, just one person affected the game more than, 50,000 other people did.
Right. Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Totally. So there you go. The metagame of Final Fantasy XIV is real. You guys are adding to it by doing things like participating in the show, participating on the official forums, Reddit, anywhere.
Just by being you. You are in the Matrix.
Yes. Yeah, you are a part of the system.
I think there's one more thing I want to add. Is just people might need to just take a hard look at themselves and change their attitudes towards gaming in general. Not just Final Fantasy XIV, but gaming as a whole. Like, don't be reactive to it, adapt and change to the game. Don't force let the creators, let the developers do what they do, which is develop the video game, and not demand so much of them. Don't demand changes, don't demand nerfs so much until you actually put in the time. And
too many people call for nerfs without a proper explanation or understanding of what they're asking for.
And Samus,
Absolutely.
how dare you? This is Limit Break Radio, okay? A Nero delivers the motivational life lesson speeches here, not you. Know your place.
Jeez. It's fine. I'll just stick to making fun of people who suck at video games.
Like Juxta.
I don't suck.
Yeah, but that's shooting fish in a barrel.
You know, on the way here, we actually had a discussion where you're like, I'm bad at new games. That's why I don't play them anymore.
Yeah, well, hey, that goes back to a conversation we had on Final Encounter Cast where just like the controller will be no longer a thing, and then we'll be like, I don't know, how does it work? I don't understand. How do I jump?
I walk in the other day, I'm like, what are you playing? XCOM. I'm like, oh, that new one? He's like, no, the one from 93. He was up till like 5 a.m. playing it.
Oh my god.
The graphics were so terrible.
What is wrong with you?
It's really awful because the port like doesn't stretch the screen properly. So like I'd move my mouse like an inch up and down, and it barely moves a centimeter. But like just tap my mouse like to left or right, and it goes across the screen. I'm like, come on, really?
You're playing a broken game. Stop.
Get with it, bro.
But it's fun.
Oh
How many colors does that game have? Does it even have a million colors?
It has 256. Thank you very much.
Do you have to run a fucking DOS emulator to run it?
It does run a DOS box.
Are you shitting me?
No.
Are you shitting me?
Through Steam.
Holy shit. Wow.
A DOS box.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? Hey, I've got an idea. Let's get him the very first Sam and Max game, or Legends of Kyrandia. Fucking hey, there was a new King's Quest game that came out. Let's not get you the new King's Quest. Let's get you the old one.
Is it fun?
Fucking idiot. What the hell?
No, I started playing all the old Star Wars games, and those run on DOSBox too.
See? Thanks, Nika.
But I never played them as a kid, and they're worth playing.
Juxta, congrats. Nika's on your side.
Hey, well, you know what? I'm playing through Xenogears. I never played that as a kid, but you know what? I'm not playing it on my PS3. You know, like you know what I mean? Like that seems like a crime to me. Put it up on a nice big TV screen. Why would you do that? It looks like dog balls.
Yeah, it does look really bad on my PC.
It really does. It looks terrible.
I'm a retro gamer.
Stop shaming me!
He's playing it after it's cool. Wait.
Get an NVIDIA Shield or something. Like, God. Emulate it. Put it on your phone. I'm sure it could run on your phone. I bet you $100 it could run on your phone.
That'd be pretty sweet, actually.
$100 would buy him an emulator, a phone that would run it.
Yeah, no shit. All right. So again, Samus, thank you for joining us today and talking about the metagame. I think that really maybe like only half of us knew really.
I still don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Really, what we were gonna end up talking about today, and
I was really interested when we were talking about Hearthstone and card games, and then we started talking about 14 again. I'm like, oh man.
About
you would.
CCGs. I mean, I thought about CCGs. CCGs is actually really relevant because I used to play Magic the Gathering. So I mean, that's where I think metagame is really prevalent when you have a whole bunch of decks that are popular at one point, and then all of a sudden they drop off the face of the earth because other people figure out ways around it.
Well, I mean, Face Hunter is strong all the time, but then people just start throwing more taunts in their deck, and then what can Face Hunter do against a 2/8 taunt? I mean, come on. Am I right, guys?
That is metagame. That qualifies as metagame. I have no idea what you just said, but it qualifies as metagame.
Card game.
Anyway, all right. So again, Samus, thank you so much for hanging out and doing the show today. And let's talk about
really quick,
emails.
Samus, from the bottom of my heart, it was really, really fun having you on the show, but I like Joe Never way more.
Ow!
Wow!
I'll bench for.
Wow! Why do you have to compare them like that?
Damn, dude, that's cold.
Wow.
I didn't want to lie. I wanted to be honest and open with my feelings. Like
you can hold some stuff back.
No,
you know?
the alpha male experience is about communication.
Yeah,
we're communicating.
I don't get it. This and might also embracing feedback as well. And
he might strive to be better now.
No, I won't. You're entitled to your opinion, but you're wrong.
I think I'll throw my towel into Samus's court. I'm voting for the birthday boy here. Happy birthday,
Is
Samus.
it Samus's birthday?
It is.
Oh, fuck.
Do you have a birthday drop?
No.
I feel like why did we not know about this?
Okay, I gotta explain this every time it comes up, but here's how it goes. In my channel, twitch.tv/evolvedmale,
yeah.
Anytime I stream, people think it's my birthday. So I don't know who started it or how it started. Just every time I stream, people wish me happy birthday, and it got to a point when I was telling people it's not my birthday today, and they're like, yeah, it is. It's you're streaming today, so it's your birthday. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just run with it. And so now it's anytime I'm live on Twitch now. I used to say it's anytime I'm streaming, but I guess now since I'm guest on your show, I guess it's anytime that I'm on Twitch, it's my birthday technically.
So you lied to us just now. It's not actually your birthday.
I didn't lie to you. The world did.
You know what? This is why Joe's better than you.
Hey,
Joe would never lie about his birthday.
Happy birthday, Samus.
Thank you.
You guys want to sing it?
Not if it's not his real birthday.
No, come on, sing it.
I'm going to stand here defiantly.
No, we can sing next week to Surin because next week will be Surin.
Let's whatever. Just
I'm gonna sing.
Come on. We can get a good. Don't be shitty. Come on. Yeah, we can get a good chorus of this going on. Ready?
I'm not going to enjoy it.
Is there a delay over Skype or this is going to sound really stupid?
This is going to sound terrible.
It's going to sound terrible, but it's fine. Every rendition of Happy Birthday sounds terrible.
Okay, we need to harmonize first. Okay. Okay, right there. Good. Okay, ready? Wait. I forgot that the copyrights exist to the song. We can't perform it. Is that for real?
I don't think Happy Birthday has a...
No.
Oh, yeah.
Happy Birthday is absolutely copyrighted, and that's
You're right.
why
That's why the stupid restaurants have to have different Happy Birthday songs.
Yes, it is.
By who?
Who the hell?
Who the fuck copied Happy Birthday?
I don't know. I can't remember. I used to know the story, but I don't. I actually learned about that in my media law class in college.
What bullshit?
I know.
Okay, well, we can all do our own rendition of Happy Birthday. So
we can. That's true.
Okay, so on the count of 3, sing Happy Birthday in your own rendition to Samus.
Okay. Well, wait. Individually or at the same time?
At the same time.
Everybody does their own individual one at the same time, so
all right.
It sounds terrible.
Okay, fine. So it's just going to be a cacophony then.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Is that the thing like pharaohs are in?
No.
That's a sarcophagus, you idiot.
Oh, okay. All right, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! It's your birthday, Samus! Happy birthday! Yeah!
Samus.
You're dumb.
That's awesome.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's Limit Break Radio's version of Happy Birthday.
Yeah,
that's my new ringtone now. or maybe that'll be my new follower message. That was pretty awesome in a horrifying way. But thank you guys. That's
just make sure you have my edition at the end of your dumb there. Okay.
Thank you guys. It was beautiful.
It's like a trailer park Easter.
I don't even know what that means.
I feel like it fit though.
It definitely does.
It worked somehow.
Do we have emails today?
Yes, let's read some emails. Who wants to read the first email here?
I'll take the first one.
Yeah, you take the first one.
All right. Hey guys, my name is Tahorian Margrace of Phoenix Server, and I'd like your thoughts on whether you think we'll ever be able to queue for multiple duties as multiple classes. I have no idea if it's even possible, but trying to level DPS classes to 60, well, the struggle is most definitely real. Since the 2.0 beta, I've put in over just 1,000 hours into this game, but over the past year, real-life work has been piling up, and it's getting difficult to level my classes to 60 since I finished the 3.0 story with my main, Dick Ninja. Anyway, I'd never emailed you folks before, but but I've been a big fan of your guys' show since I found you when you launched just after 2.0. Thanks for all the hard work you put into the show. I look forward to the next episode. Torian Margrace of Phoenix. P.S. Can't wait for the darn EU data centers. Reduce that Mudra lag, please.
Yeah.
I think it's for her.
Whatever. Anyway, I think the idea is cool, but I think what you would end up running into is the only time that I really see that being relevant is if you PvP as a different class than you main as, or if you obviously you're gonna, like, let's say you're doing your ESO roulette for the day,
right?
But you also want to level, right? Depending on what you're leveling, like if you queue, let's say, as a healer for ESO and you want to level your Dragoon, I'm sorry, you are never going to get that Dragoon into a duty before your healer's needed.
You know what would be nice though? I think a cool feature that they could add is, you queue as whatever job you end up wanting to queue as, and then you can switch and do other things. And if you're queuing for something that has an extra long wait time, and then you get stuck in like a fate or something and you can't change your job, you should just be able to hit the accept button and it takes you into
without changing your job.
It changes you for you.
Yeah, into the blackness, and then once you're into the dungeon or the instance, whatever, it just sort of changes you automatically.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I don't know what would be involved on a system side in a development like that, but it seems like that would be a really helpful feature. But in terms of like queuing up as multiple jobs for stuff, I don't know. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah.
I feel like that would get really kind of complicated. But you know, there is stuff about the Duty Finder queuing that they can get better, like being able to queue with having a pet
companion out.
your chocobo out.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that a lot of people harp on them for all the time. Juxta, you have any thoughts?
No.
Those are just like quality.
You looked like you were ready to say something.
Well, I
They
had
are, but they're
something.
big, important quality of life things.
It's quality of life, but I think the implementation is way more difficult than we perceive.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Yeah. We don't care now.
I was going to say, as a punishment for joining as the wrong class, you should enter the dungeon naked.
Good addition.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Then then while you wait, you can just change your gear. It's not.
Oh yeah.
Oh, how embarrassing! I was fate grinding while waiting for a 45-minute queue pop. Oh no! Look at me without my clothes on.
Scandalous.
Slut.
Anyway, thank you very much, Torhern, for that email.
And we also have probably our last caller of the night. We have Saskiote, good friend.
Hey, what's up, Saskiote? How's it going, man?
Hey guys, it's been a while.
Yeah, I know, right, man?
Not long enough.
Whoa.
Oh, what?
Sass, man, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good here. Just hanging out in the studio with you guys.
Right on. Anything to add to our metagame discussion here today?
Oh god, there's so much. First of all, where's the crafter endgame? Because scripts ain't gonna do it.
Oh, there's crafting in this game? I forgot.
Did they add that?
Did they not give you enough?
7?
Must you suck out more of our PvE development time, you leeches?
That could be PvP stuff.
That's how I make my million a day here.
That's listen to this guy.
Wow,
a million a day.
Oh, honey.
Oh, that's so sweet. You're cute.
You act like you were in your own guild. Shut up.
Well, I don't have someone feeding me money all the time. I have to go out there and get everything and make it myself.
I know,
It's
but
so
it's
sad.
just so funny because it's like a million an hour for her.
Okay, but really, the way she makes it, doesn't she make it through crafting and things like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, crafting. What you're completely dissing on right now is actually what gets you money.
I'm dissing on the fact that he only makes $1 million a day.
Or it's $1 million per retainer, but I didn't want to brag.
Or just like, I'm not really sure how to form a talk show around the concept of crafting and gathering.
Want to know why? It's dumb.
Because it's boring?
The only thing crafting is good for is a friend to give me money.
Very true.
And fixing your equipment. Got to be able to fix your equipment.
Well, all right.
They should make that mainstream.
Come on.
All right. We will have a show where we spend 5 minutes explaining how if you level a crafting job, you can repair your own equipment for double it. Oh, we just did.
It's the show. Good job.
Crafting show.
Hey, there we go. Hey, no, but seriously, I think that's like an expectation that should everyone should be able to at least fix their gear. Right?
If a Nero can do it.
If I can do it. If I can put enough time
You only
into it.
have to have the classes to 50 to repair
know.
60 gear.
Yeah, just get your rich beneficiary friend to make you high quality versions of the turn-ins that you use for the leave quest. And you'll have it done in no time.
Fuck that. Just play for a while. You'll get enough money. As soon as you got like $1.5 million, like just start buying stuff off the auction house. It's really
50 to 60 is not that easy to do that, though.
Yeah,
It's a
no,
lot,
50
it's a lot
to
more expensive nowadays.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It's so easy.
Back to what he was saying, they made crafting a lot harder. The scripts are really annoying to gather, and everything is 10 times more expensive. So crafting is a lot less. No one wanted to craft in the first place, and now literally no one wants to.
Yeah. That
scripts.
And I feel like they had the wrong idea. Where I feel like initially they wanted to make it more accessible, and then all they did was make it harder.
Yeah. Nika, please save it for the crafting show.
How was that supposed to make it more accessible exactly?
They didn't. They changed their mind and decided crafting is for the exclusive high.
No,
it's ridiculous.
I think what the idea was by making you focus on a specific craft, to specialize in it, and you take so long to get all the quote-unquote AF gear that you wouldn't have a few people monopolizing everything. And so, well, let's say Sass, is no longer monopolizing everything. He has to focus on carpenter and goldsmith. Now somebody else actually has room to fill those other spots. But you're right. As a result, people are just like, holy shit.
Yeah, I leveled Weaver into 60, and now I never want to touch any other craft ever again. It was so miserable an experience. So, that's how stupid it is right now.
But you guys know that there are players out there that only do crafting. That's their game.
Yeah.
And we have a very, very long segment dedicated just to them.
Lick my balls!
Nice!
Yeah, there you go. Well, but that's the thing is that I understand that it's a big part of this game for some people. It's just it's a very small portion of the population.
And now it's even smaller.
Yeah.
Well, for me, mostly it just gives me something to do. Helps me keep my sanity in some days.
Well, hey, look, man, I'm sitting at 250 ESOs right now. I am not hurting for things to do. Trust me.
That's how many I have.
None?
No, 250.
Oh, really?
I probably have less.
Oh, that's weird. How do we both end
I
up?
don't know if it's exact. I'm just saying it's around that. I'm like halfway-ish.
Yeah.
My things to do consist of Metal Gear, so.
Well,
Aside
that is taken up.
a couple of other things I wanted to add into the discussion.
Okay, all right.
This actually happened while I was listening to the show.
Okay.
I ended up going in a fractal, and a summoner was yelling at me for not using Firestarter every 5 seconds.
Wait,
So-
isn't Firestarter the proc that gives you Fire 3?
it's random. It randomly pops up. But he's telling me that a good black mage can have it pop up every 5 seconds.
Well, why aren't you so good?
Get good at RNG, bro.
Apparently you're the RNG Jesus.
Jesus.
RNG Jesus, I meant.
Jesus, yeah. Nika, you fucked it up.
Yeah.
I did. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a very, very weird run. And we get to the boss.
Uh-huh.
And the tank dies. But I get kicked.
Well, you should have saved him. You should have used Apocastasis.
Or use your Firestarter proc to keep him up.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because that can heal things.
Wait, did you manipulate his ether at any point?
That's what I should have
There's
done.
your problem.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we figured it out.
You're
We
a bad-
figured it out. We
Sass, you're a bad.
Yeah, so apparently it's my fault the tank died.
Yeah, go
As
back
a
to
black
crafting.
Well, so people are dumb, man. I get thrown into retarded duties all the time.
Me too. I mean, every time I party with a Nero, it's like, for real?
Yeah.
I can't help but there's some there's metagame there because
back to the metagame.
Come on. No, this is something that I take. I take this very seriously because I think whenever something weird like that happens in the game, I'm always thinking to myself, like, what the fuck just happened? And I try to play it backwards and try to figure out, did I do something wrong? Or, did Saskia do something wrong? Could he have done something better? Like, seriously, not stupid shit that you guys were suggesting.
Yeah.
Like, is there any other thing that he could have done better?
Well,
go
on.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if I come to the conclusion where I can say, you know what, I did the best I could. I really did everything I could.
Yeah.
And I'm okay just walking away with it with the conclusion that these guys were fucking idiots. Like the group that Saskia was with, these guys were all idiots in the same mentality, and I'm okay with that. But I think a lot of people have trouble letting go of that.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where I think you figure out how to handle yourself, and that's not within the game.
Well,
That's really
ego plays a big part in this.
The very first dungeon I ever did in FF14 with a Nero, Wanderer's Palace. Remember that Dick Black Mage?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was fresh,
I do.
Fresh 50. First time I was even trying, like my dungeon rotation, so of course I fucking sucked.
Right.
Right?
And he just sat there and
he was
just
a fucking asshole
Oh,
about
yeah.
it. And even though I knew I sucked, and there's a reason I have no gear and I need to practice.
Yeah.
I still felt terrible about it and didn't do dungeons the rest of the week.
And especially with dungeons, if you've got one mouthy asshole in there, they've really only got to convince two other people to want to boot you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And-
It's not hard to convince stupid people to agree with you.
Right. I mean, there was a time when Juxta was kicked by one of his own friends. Quote unquote
Whoa,
friends.
I wouldn't call him a friend anymore.
Anyway, yeah, Saskia, yeah, that sucks, man. And I know that we've all got stories like that. It's rough, and I mean, it's.
I feel for people when they go through stuff like that, because
Yeah.
if they really didn't do anything wrong, like even if Saskia would respond with something like, hey, what am I doing wrong? Why don't you tell me what I'm doing wrong? And see
Right.
if they actually have a legit answer besides get better at RNG.
Dude, there are just some people who want to bitch about stuff. It doesn't matter what it is.
You know what I'd like to know? How did that, like, what experience or what information did that person see or was given to where they think Firestarter, like who told them, yeah, you can make Firestarter proc more?
Yeah, they probably have just seen it pop up on people's bars and just thought it was an ability.
What the fuck?
Yeah, well, but when people say things with total confidence like that, well, good black mages can make Firestarter pop up every 5 seconds. seconds.
Like, yeah, where did you get that information from?
Well, but what it sounds like is I've done a whole lot of research on this, and I know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Link me to sources.
When most times, what it is someone talking out their ass and parroting something that somebody else told them, and that is the worst, most egregious case of that shit. That shit is just, if you you can't really identify it when it happens, but if you're a perpetrator of that shit, you know what you're doing, and you're a fucking asshole. And that's the honest truth about it. You're a dick, and you know you're being a dick, and you probably feel bad about it later.
No, I don't think they do.
You don't feel bad if you're a sociopath. So, all right.
No.
Anyway, Sass, thanks for the call. We're gonna have to move on and read a couple of more emails.Nika,
if we have to cut off the last email or two.
I know that's the thing. We have to get through all of these emails
all
today.
Of them.
So, Nika, why don't you take the next one here?
Sure. All right. It says, hello, LBR. Love the show. This podcast is one of the few that I found that is funny, loud, and is actually informative of the topic without just reading patch notes. I love that loud is a good point that you're putting out there. Keep up the amazing work. But to the point of the email, I was thinking, do you guys ever feel like the character NPCs don't have much personality? I mean, with most characters feel just plain bland, and we barely, if ever, get any backstory on them to connect with. I worry at the fact whenever I ask someone who their favorite character is, excluding the Warrior of Light, they go on a blank or go for the obvious and say Harsh and Farn, even had some people say, what is there to build a favorite upon? The only character everyone likes now is Hearts and Farts, and everyone only likes him because, spoiler alert, he sacrifices himself for you before he died. Before he died, no one gave two shits about him. My question is to you, LBR, do you feel the way the characters are presented now is fine, or do you think there can be more improvement? Kuru Palazzo from Marlboro.
Great email, and I so agree that Hearts and Farts at this point is like the Kurt Cobain of Final Fantasy XIV. The only reason anyone gives a shit about him is because he's dead. If he had continued on to write Christmas albums and do a song with Christina Aguilera, then people would have gone, why didn't this guy shoot himself at 27?
Excuse me. Hearts and Farts lives matter.
That's gonna end up on Twitter.
Ellison lives matter, right? Like,
oh boy,
no, they don't.
There's actually a Femro out here called Femro Lives Matter.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
In the studio.
All right. First of all, I think that the character development has gotten a lot better from 2.0 or in 3.0 from 2.0.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. And there's not enough there for us to really yet develop a connection with them. But I think if you look at how connected you were to, let's say, the Science, since they were the most prevalent NPCs in 2.0, right?
Right.
And how connected you are to characters just in 3.0, for me, it's about the same, if not more. And it's just, the beginning as opposed to the entire expansion from 2.0. What I feel for Y'shtola right now, Y'shtola's a fucking badass, right? And sure, it's sort of built on from 2.0 into 3.0. But she is by far my favorite of the Scions, right? Or take fucking Matoya. Matoya was awesome, dude.
Sure.
I think they realized that. I think they realized that the Scions were supposed to be at this big central point, and then there was nothing there. So I think by quote unquote killing them off, they kind of opened this opportunity. We got Y'shtola
They're
back.
now reborn.
And now we had a whole series of backstory to Y'shtola. Right. So imagine if the next one we get back is Papalymo. I would assume that we would have this whole series of backquests about Papalymo, right? And so they kind of have this opportunity now to build that for us.
And thematically, that fits in with the entire Final Fantasy franchise, because there is always a point at almost every single Final Fantasy game where you are separated from the entirety of your party or a portion of your party, where some of the characters that you've been leveling up and also developing a narrative bond with are removed from you, and either you've either got your main character that you're controlling and he's solo, or whatever it is. Thematically, having the party split apart is a huge part of Final Fantasy going way, way back in this series' history. And you can't really do that with the party makeup, right? Because then it ceases being it ceases being an MMO. So it's sort of filling that function. and spreading your party apart so that you can find them again later. And that's, I mean, you know, like
I've never looked at it that way.
And
that makes so much sense.
When you look at it like that, I think it does sort of fit in with the whole kind of idea of what Final Fantasy puts forward in terms of a narrative where friendship is really at the heart of it, where you know, togetherness and relying on your friends and you know, your party, like a big part of that is becoming separated from them and learning to rely on yourself for even just a portion of the game. Right. I think that is this portion of Final Fantasy XIV's narrative, and that, you know, I know that we've given a lot of lip service to, oh, I hope they're dead, I hope they're alive, or whatever, but I do think that that's the role that this part of the narrative is really serving.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that sort of drives home the fact that their character building in 2.0 is getting better, and that we have to wait longer to see it really pay off, is there are still a lot of characters that we want to see more of,
right? Such
as the mongrel, but there just hasn't been enough time.
There just hasn't been enough time. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's there's that. I really, one of the things that I become a stickler about in terms of character development is when the character is no longer on screen, can I imagine them doing something else? Like, what are they, like, when they're not immediately in front of me and interacting with my character, do these characters have an actual, like, really tangible life outside of this? And I think that is very crucial to being able to grow a character where, yeah, you know, you have your interaction with them, and then it's not like for a lot of the Scions, I felt like, oh, you know, when I'm not interacting or I'm not around, they're just standing around the Waking Sands, just like fucking, I don't know what they're doing, they're just not doing anything.
That is 100% true, because you know who out of all the Scions who's probably the most beloved one? Tataru.
Yeah.
And even though we made fun of those stupid little fetch quests in between, the fact that she was out there, you know, trying to be like a fucking summoner or whatnot and failing, or trying to be a miner and failing, she was actually like out doing shit.
Yeah.
I know what my waifu is doing. She's at her desk doodling pictures of me while I'm out saving the world.
Well, yeah, like that's a great quote. When you're not talking to Minfilia, what the fuck is Minfilia doing?
I always figured Minfilia fulfilled the role of like the tactician and the person who was kind of creating all the strategies. And in every game, you always have that person.
But you know what I mean? Like.
She's not, he says. No.
But because I feel like that's why she never fights. She's like the leader who sits there and devises the strategies.
Because we don't see her doing stuff. That's why I can't trust her opinion,
because I've never seen her fight.
I think that when we get Minfilia back, though, she's going to come in with this, like, new, you know, she's going to have a whole new outfit, like all the Scions, and she's going to, like, do this whole, like, cool, badass entrance where she actually does something.
I hope so.
Because I think Square-Enix knows that everyone, like, makes fun of her for doing nothing. That would give her more credibility.
Yeah, that would give her more credibility.
She's like, I've had this time away from all of you Scions, and I have refound myself, and now I'm a badass.
Yeah, but she has no purpose. She just gives orders and then sits back down at her desk. Like, what, does she sit there at her desk and read some dossiers? And
maybe she does.
You know, like she gets
charts the Ascians movements, and she
gets up and goes and makes a pot of coffee, sits back down.
No, Tataru makes the coffee.
Oh, so the Tataru brings in the coffee, but like, you know, 20 minutes after reading the dossier, she's like, oh, I gotta take a crap now. You know, like
she's writing fan fiction about me.
Oh my god!
Like it just seems like, you know what I mean? Like when she's not interacting with anyone, it just seems like she's just like sitting there at her desk, not doing anything. I don't know. That's a really big deal in terms of character development for me.
For me, it helps when I know that they're someplace. Like for you said, you know, they're just in
doing
the Waking
some shit,
Sands, right?
Yeah.
But for example, I like the idea that Sid and Biggs and Wedge are in that like little building behind Slaffborn. You know, when we were back in Mordona, like they're in there doing something. And so if I think about it, like I imagine, you know, the two of them are working, and Wedge fucking drops something and, you know, hits Biggs on the head, and they start bickering, and then Sid has to come over and like break the two of them up. You know, like that.
I like the idea of like player created stuff like the Twitter account Drunk Minfilia, where, you know, like
I've never seen that.
Oh, it is hysterical. It's so funny. It's so funny. But like it actually kind of gives like an added depth to the character if you start thinking about it as you know, the actual Minfilia character, and it's just like little touches things like that, are kind of absent from games like this. And I get it that there's, like that's a sort of like gritty reality sort of thing. And not every character has to be complete with flaws and everything. But Square Enix has this tendency to make very, like 1 or 2 dimensional characters that,
when it comes to their MMOs.
And in other games too.
Sure.
I think that's a criticism that I've long held against Square Enix, because I think that anime does that too. That anime gives their characters 1 or 2 dimensions, and then beyond that, that's like their role in the narrative.
They need more hard ass swearing characters like Sid from FF7. You sit down and drink your goddamn tea.
God damn it. Anyway, all right. So thank you, Kuru, for the email. Very interesting discussion to be had there. But yeah, I think in general they're getting better at it, and it obvious. And we've said this before. We've said this a lot in terms of the narrative power of Final Fantasy XIV. There is no other MMO that could even come close to holding. To holding it to that standard.
But Minecraft has story mode now, so watch out.
All right. This is
a short one. Have Juxta.
Yeah, Juxta, you take this next email.
Hey, Limit Break Radio. It is BB Nasu Tata Nasu from Ultros. I wrote in...
Ultros being well represented this week.
Yeah. I wrote in about changing to a higher last week. Well, I changed back to a Lalafell... Last year. And I changed back to a Lalafell a week after and realized how much I love the little people.
Kahlo, do you share that sentiment? I mean, you've been playing a little person for a while. Can you understand why he would love it?
I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm actually taller than most Lalafell because I have Elezen blood in me.
So, I see.
Wow.
I'm an LFL.
Anyway, onto my email, so I don't get a drop or a degrading comments said.
Degrading comment!
The duty finder issues regarding trials, dungeons, PvP, etc. Could be fixed 2 ways. Number 1, allow us to have companions out while queuing!
Yeah, I think we had just mentioned that.
Get good, Square Enix. And number 2, allow us to queue for whatever we want. Instead of choosing one type of roulette or dungeon or PvP type, allow us to queue for multiple things at once.
Oh, okay. I guess I could kind of get that. It does. It is.
You can't queue for trial and low level roulette at once.
Yeah.
If you queue for a roulette, then that's all you get to queue for.
I mean, I get putting a cap of 5 on there. I think that's totally fair, but it would be nice if you got to choose multiple categories.
Just letting us queue for whatever roulette we want with friends. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that too.
BB Nasu Tata Narsu signing out. Number 6 is awesome. He doesn't get enough praise.
Yeah, well, he's not here, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he gets too much praise.
Yeah.
Anero's turn.
All right. Hello, LBR hosts and number 6. Question. I remember from a couple of weeks back, Anero mentioned he didn't get the Heavensward banner flag from GameStop, but got a cutout. This will not do.
I'm going to burn it.
Excuse me. I managed to get a couple extra when I picked up Heavensward. And I've been sending them to friends and FC mates within the U.S., and I have one left and would offer it to you and your studio. Oh, that's very nice. Since I never have the money to become a Patreon supporter, I figure that this is the least I could do. My first time watching you guys was the Salted Earth episode.
I'm sorry.
And my first impression of you guys was, my God, what elitist pricks. They need to pull the stick out of their asses. But you guys made me laugh, and even when we don't agree, and so I stayed a fan. And by the way, you need more episodes as fun as the Salted Earth episode. Email me back when you guys want the last banner flag. I definitely will email you back.
Since he didn't include his name.
It's very, very, very kind of you. And P.S. Someone said someone should make a Rob from New York fan club. Best part of your show when he calls. Also, Kahlo should be in charge since he's the funniest.
What? How about that? That's the funniest.
The funniest?
Yeah.
You keep using that word, but I'm not convinced you know what it means.
All right, I'll take this next one. Oh, wait. It's paladin-y.
Yeah, this is very paladin heavy. Nika, how about you
skip it?
Unless you want me to do my Nika impression.
No, that's okay.
I have a Nika impression. Have you ever heard my Nika impression, Nika?
I don't know if I want to.
I kind of do. I want to hear it. Let's hear it.
I've done it a few times.
Let's hear it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to be Nika for a minute, Kate.
Okay.
All right. Look, guys, okay, it's just in progression rating, Paladin needs to be as viable as the other jobs because I don't want to have to level Warrior just to help out my group, and I feel like I'm letting them down. And then a Nero, well, Nika, why don't you just get good? Because the problem isn't that I'm not good, okay? It's just that Paladin doesn't have the same DPS as what a Warrior does, and that's just not fair. That's my Nika impression.
That's your Nika impression? I thought it was going to come with a voice or something.
Yeah, and
He had a little voice. It was okay.
I did the best one on, I forget what episode it was, but it was about Nika being elitist. And that was
I don't know. I mean, I thought the femro pipes would play in there somehow, and it would be more along the lines of, come on, guys, it's not fair. Paladin is just as viable.
No, my femro does not sound like
I could have went that route, but I feel like that's just the voice that we do just for dumb people in general, and I wanted to capture like that feminine Nika that just sounds like, oh, I'm all airheady and blah, 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 blah. This place is
boring! Wow.
Yeah.
Airheady.
Wow.
Oh, did I use that word?
Yeah, you did.
Oh.
You said that out loud.
Whoops.
Nice job.
She's like, I don't know how to respond to that.
I will just read this email then. Sounds good?
Okay, sounds good.
It says... God damn it. It says, hey, LBR gang, I hate to be...
She sounds just like that.
I hate to be that guy, but there are a few misconceptions being tossed around in past episodes that I want to call attention to. It's not a big deal on the whole, but it wrestles my jimmies to see misinformation parroted.
No. Oh, no. Look out.
I was a Paladin main through to T13 and transitioned to Dark Knight main in 3.0. Not because it's better, even though it is, but because it's more fun. I can relate to the Paladin struggle. Number 1, Paladin's position as the defensive tank. Like a caller mentioned, it isn't. At least not in an overwhelmingly outstanding way. Dark Knight basically has the same core toolkit of Rampart and not Sentinel. The shield is basically meaningless because, as many know, the tank and heal meta is about surviving those big burst attacks. The shield mitigation on average is not insignificant, but doesn't matter for the moments that really count. Preempting a, quote, but it makes life harder on the healers, quote, you make healers less able to DPS, or anything like that. No, it doesn't work like that. That's a bad healer mentality.
Ooh.
I like you. There are a number of ways this could be tweaked. Without going into too much of a wish list rant, you could overhaul Shield Oath to grant a stack of some buff for every shield block or a certain threshold of damage getting hit, etc. Then overhaul relatively useless skills like Shield Swipe or Cover, or augment other skills like Fight or Flight with the stacks you gain. For example, make Cover give you damage reduction innately and added damage reflection effect like Vengeance, even though you're not actually taking the cover damage for someone, or make Cover into like an inverse trick attack, buff one person's damage for the duration. If Paladin is going to be relegated to the weak or safe tank, give it utility instead. Clemency and Divine Veil are such a huge waste of potential. I agree. Also make Sword Oath not mutually exclusive so it works like Grit with Dark Side.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
I think that would be a big help, and it's one of those things that other tanks have been given the functionality of that Paladin has just not. Paladin has nothing like that.
It's because Sword Oath is literally only enhances your auto attack, so it's like that should be something that goes along with Shield Oath, or just changed altogether.
Now, I like having Dark Knight's Grit and Dark Side be stackable, because that gives them like a little uniqueness. So I think,
but Sword Oath blows. So
sort of blows. So it's just
I don't know. I don't know that it needs to be made exactly like Grit, Grit and Dark Side, but something with. Something with it that would be able to, either pump out more DPS or be more definitively defensive.
I feel like his next point talks on Sword Oath.
Yeah, I feel like the fact that they went as far, like for Ninja, to change Huton, which was a boring ability. It's necessary, but it's boring. So they made it, better, that they should be able to do the same thing with something like Shield Oath.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's see. He says number 2, Sword Oath. Specifically, everyone in the room talked about it like it was weak or that's all it does. You have to realize that a 50 potency hit added to every auto attack is not insignificant. Okay. Paladin auto attack speed is even faster than the 3-second server tick, so it actually ticks faster than any other DOT. And it is always on in theory. The problem is that you can only use this in the off-tank role effectively because it murders your hate output, which is one of Paladin's other issues. Warrior and Dark Knight can put out a huge spike of hate and then go face roll, but Paladin can't do this easily and is often stuck spamming Halone if trying to hold hate on Sword Oath.
That's a good point.
Yes, which again goes to be a utility problem I mentioned earlier. Just without going on that tirade again, wanted to point out that Sword Oath is not as bad as it looks. Yeah, okay.
But it's also not as usable as other offensive abilities that tanks have.
And it's really boring.
Okay, that's fair too.
Yeah. Okay, number 3. He says morale in PvP. Well, okay. I think it was probably just because your episode was more aimed at new people getting into PvP, but I found it a bit disappointing that Joe did not clarify what morale actually does on the show and that it does work in Frontline, albeit not in a way a lot of people care about, and this is very heavily in the realm of, really? You felt this had to be said? I don't think it does work in Frontline, but
it does not.
It does not work in Frontline.
Well, he says this. Let's see. So every piece of gear has some main stat, some VIT on the left side, and 2 secondary stats. One of these is capped, and the other is about 2/3 capped. What morale does is get you that secondary stat up to capped value. An arbitrary example with numbers for Bard. Say body A has 50 crit, 40 skill speed at I-180, but B is 70 crit, 60 skill speed at I-210.
God, when did we start going to school?
Body C has 50 crit, 40 skill speed at I-180, but has morale plus 30.
Which one will reach Ishgard first?
Yeah,
Hurry up, you number crunching crumb nuncher!
Because Steel Rock gets capped at 180, the 210 piece gets synced, but sync in this case just means capped, not scaled down, so you get 50 crit, but also 50 speed. Okay, so he's basically saying that the morale gets that secondary stat up, whereas, when it's capped, morale still increases secondary
Yeah, but
stat.
I don't think that it actually makes a difference in Frontlines, and if it does,
I think they flat out said that it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said that morale has no effect in Frontline.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they did state that outright. The second part of that is that if it is active in Frontlines, is it active in Seal Rock? Because those seem to be 2 separate events, and nobody does Frontlines anymore anyway. I'm pretty sure that this shit does not matter for Seal Rock. Pretty sure that it doesn't matter for the shit that people are actually doing.
But we can't spread misinformation.
And even if it does, like, most of the gear that you're wearing is above the item level cap anyway.
Better than yeah.
So
exactly.
We are community figures.
He says typically it doesn't matter that much because of the mindset and on-the-fly decisions you have to make in a match, but all else being equal, the guy who has slightly better gear has the edge. So sorry for being anal about minor issues, but like I said, Jimmys are rustled. Hope you all have a fine day anyways. From Seravi Edelborez of Hyperion.
All right. The Sword Oath, fair, but again, not enough to make a difference in what we were talking about. Even if we didn't describe it exactly perfectly, it's still not enough to make a considerable difference in the application that we're talking about here. It just doesn't. And for your morale in PvP, I just don't know, man. I just don't know.
You just don't care.
That's also part of it.
Wordings.
All right, I got this next one.
All right, let's do that.
Dear LBR crew, Angelus Iron Shield of Cactar here. First off, I just want to say you guys and gals are awesome, informative, and outright fucking hilarious. You all make my work week less grindy. Back in late April, I made the return to Eorzea after leaving World of Warcraft for good. I originally played Final Fantasy XIV at launch, but quit due to relationship priorities. She played World of Warcraft and wanted me to join her.
How dare her.
I'm sorry.
Now, both my girlfriend and I have returned and have completed the main story. Fucking amazing. Many tears, so much feels. Leveling my paladin to 60. It was at this time that 2 things happened. 1, I heard the show in which you all stated how bad paladins were for endgame. 2, I discovered that my free company has a metric shit ton of tanks, so I've decided to start leveling a Dragoon. Senpai Ascalia noticed me on Twitter. Summoner and Scholar.
Also a great example of the metagame right there.
I have been enjoying each class immensely. However, as I level them, I'm beginning to dread getting to 60 again, as I have begun to fear that I have chosen classes that won't allow me to enter endgame. I was a hardcore raider in WoW before I left and have not had the chance to see any Final Fantasy XIV endgame raid content due to leveling and Heaven's Ward expansion launch. As someone who tanked his entire MMO gaming career, what would be the recommendation from the LBR crew? Should I stay my course and level all 3, which was Dragoon, Summoner, and Scholar, or level 1 specific class? Any input would be great. Thanks again, guys and gal of LBR. Sincerely, Angelus, a.k.a. the Cajun Geek. P.S. Quick shout out to the Cactar server and free company Gray Sky Armada.
Well, thank you so much for the email. Glad to see that you are back in the world of Eorzea and enjoying yourself. And I
still have your girlfriend.
Yeah, and I think
I thought that was going in a complete different direction. Now that she's gone.
Now that I murdered her.
I want to clarify that there is no job that doesn't allow you to enter endgame.
Yes,
it's just that
agreed.
some will
Except
make you
Paladin. Except Paladin.
No. I've cleared both 1 and 2 as Paladin, so it's not impossible.
Oh, the
it's
easy
just,
mode.
It's just it might take you longer, or it might take different ways of doing it. It might not be as fast or as the best utilities you possibly can. But there is no job that is not allowed into endgame. That is, first off, level what you feel you like. That's what I would
That's some
say.
metagame bullshit right there too.
Totally.
That's some metagame bullshit saying summoner and scholars aren't viable. What? Summoners are awesome, depending on the fight.
Yeah,
I mean they're not the best
yeah.
at every. I mean that's the point of the game. I think a lot of people.
Summoners are really good at a lot of the fights in Alex because there's 2 targets.
Yeah, I think people get that confused with what's best and what's best overall and what's best at one fight.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where it gets kind of muddy for a lot of people.
If someone, if someone is telling you flat out that your job can't come to a raid,
yes,
they're
that is a very I think that's a big negative side to the meta, especially when it comes to mob mentality.
Yes,
that if something is bad, it's bad everywhere, and that's just not true at all.
Totally. 100% agree with you. That is the other side of it too, is that and people end up wielding these prevailing ideas like a cudgel and beat people over the head with them and make them, like they force them to change the way that they're playing. I mean, Nika, I don't think that you are being forced by your group to change to a warrior. You have seen the benefits to playing warrior on your own and are making that decision for yourself.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try it out too. It may end up being that like I absolutely hate warrior and then I'll end up switching back anyway.
I feel people get the most frustrated when they feel like they absolutely don't have a choice, and I don't think that exists in this game. And if it does, it doesn't stay around for long. Okay, it doesn't stay around for long. People who were upset that they had leveled Summoner back when Summoner was considered "quote unquote" useless at 50 in Coil, they're having a great time now. It's part of having constant development in a game, and that's just part of the reason that we all play here. And it's going to change. Like, that's the other part about a game that gets constant development, is that we do have to accept the fact that some things are going to change. That balancing does need to happen, and sometimes we're going to get that nerf. People want to cry and bitch and complain every time that the nerfs are handed out when it's their job. But you know what? Most of the time, in terms of what Square-Enix has given us, it's really fair. So, I would not worry too much about your decisions vis-a-vis what classes to level. All right, Nika, it looks like this next email addresses Paladin, so why don't you go ahead and take that one?
Okay, says, greetings again, LBR. I wanted to write back in response to my email last week and to comment on the current state of Paladin. Man, Paladin is such a hot topic.
It really is.
Everyone loves Paladin and it's being so neglected. So first I want to clarify I'm not angry at Kahlo. Truth be told, I had already planned to support LBR through Patreon and thought it might be interesting to see how Kahlo would react if I made it seem like him leveling Lancer to 34 would impact my decision. This is the guy that says there. Says at any rate, congratulations, Kahlo, for no longer being a bat.
He got you.
Did Kahlo just get played?
He got you. He got you.
Motherfucker.
So you did actually get to 34, correct?
Yes. And you know what?
That's excellent.
Now I'm taking it off my hotbar.
Why don't you
just to spite you further?
You're an idiot.
Fall into the bad.
You're an idiot.
Go de-level it.
Don't.
If I could.
So secondly, as a Paladin main, last week's episode really hurt to listen to. I knew the state of the job was not good based on my experiences in Heaven's Word X Primals and Alex Normal, but hearing and reading about how it's all but useless in Alex Savage really makes me wonder about the value I bring to my groups as a Paladin and if I'm not wasting Iso tomes on Paladin gear. I ask myself the same question.
You are.
Yeah.
I was also a paladin in FF11. My road to 75 was back during the COP days before the big TOAU patch when they received auto-refresh, shield mastery, and the reworked shield block rates and mitigation rates. Back in those days, as you all know, if you weren't a ninja, you weren't invited to parties.
Yeah.
So sadly,
Hell
I'm
yeah.
a stranger to paladin getting this shaft.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, again, we've been talking about this a lot, but yeah, that was a great example of pre-TOAU. You did not take paladins to shit. You just didn't.
Nope.
Unless they had an Aegis shield.
Yep.
That was it. That was the only caveat, was that if they had an Aegis shield, you could take them.
And even, really, did you want them? Really?
You just wanted to see the
actually, Aegis shield made a big difference.
It did. It made a huge difference.
Finishing up, he says, I hope that SE can find a way to buff the class without compromising the feel of the class. In the meantime, I'll just stick to gearing the class and trying to weather the storm. Thanks for reading and keep being awesome. Sincerely, Tijet Seri of Adamantoise.
Tijet, you are now my arch nemesis.
Duel it out.
I'm that email makes me so happy on a lot of levels.
Still butthurt.
Me too.
And also, thank you for your support at Patreon. We really do appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, good to know that you were gonna come over to help us out at Limit Break Radio, despite what Kyle would do. But it worked, man. All credit to you. It worked.
You played Kyle like a fiddle.
Played me like a damn fiddle. All right. So
that was an awesome drop.
That wasn't a drop. That was me. I
know.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's gonna be a drop.
We should get the damn fiddle drop, like the actual damn fiddle drop. All right. This next email, Kalo, you want to read this?
Sure. No, I want to do the next one. You read this one.
No, I kind of. I really wanted to do the next one.
Fine.
I'll do the next one.
Hey,
No,
our
you won't.
hero LBR crew. I want to start by saying that I've been a follower of the show since the FF14 reboot, so please take the following with a grain of salt. And know this comes from a place of love. I'm a podcast listener currently working my way through episode 28 while I toil my weekend away at work. As I was driving in today, y'all went on for 10 or 15 minutes about how much it's worth for someone to ban Juxta. I never really got into the Twitch fad, and I gather y'all do that donation thing quite a bit. The stories can be entertaining in any case, but can we bring the shameless prostituting of the cast to a minimum? Seriously, ever since the whole Patreon thing, you guys seem to be begging for money every 5 minutes. It's getting a little off-putting now. I get that Patreon is your bread and butter, but can we give it a rest already? Though I can't speak for Nika, I get the impression she feels me on this one. You want to respond to that before we move on?
Let's get to the end of the email and we'll all take our...
Item 2 on my rant list, Crafting Gathering. I get it. None of you do it. As one of the largest FF14 podcasts and the source of relevant discussion and news regarding all things FF14, perhaps y'all shouldn't continuously bash on it outright. Maybe you instead should consider a Crafting Gathering correspondent if none of you are going to get into it personally.
This place is boring.
That way, your listeners
sorry,
who
we
are
were
interested
doing
in the
this.
subject can get their little fix too. Not everything in this game revolves around Alex Savage, which I don't do for a variety of reasons. All that said, I really do love the show. I push you guys on my FC, A Knight's Tale. My friends, and my family, all FF14 players. You guys are assholes, minus Nikra. My favorite, even though she is Rogadin and an elitist in denial. No one is perfect. But you guys are also highly entertaining assholes. Your high energy is unique and sets you apart from the Mr. Happies of the world. Keep on keeping politically incorrect. At this point, you can tell me to shut the fuck up or get good or stop listening or whatever. I'll keep listening anyways. Thanks for letting me vent. Jaren Risick of Adamantoise. P.S. Congrats to Ascalia for Seeds of Acceptance. As a member of the LGBT community with a transgender sibling, I want to extend my personal thanks for your efforts.
All right. Well, I
think this is a listener who gets us, guys.
They really do. I feel like this listener is our spirit audience.
Well, there's some pretty serious criticism in there. I feel like I spend a lot of time talking about this, and so I don't know. How do you guys feel? I mean, I feel like we were all kind of called out as a cast here that we're begging for money too much. What do you guys feel?
I think that.
Well, hold on. We have to get Nika's impression first. Nika.
I also want to chime in on this too.
Actually, my impression is that I think that I actually think we've cut back a lot on begging for money, believe it or not. And I think that it allows us other avenues to make fun of each other. I think the whole like band Juxta thing is hilarious, and I mean, granted, we probably didn't need to go on about for 15 minutes about it.
Yeah.
But I do think that it just allows us more avenues to like reach out to the community and kind of have them tell us what they want.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that wasn't a bit that we had worked up before the show.
Right.
You know,
I just made it up.
That's why it took 15 minutes to figure it out, because we like literally made it up in that second.
Yeah,
so.
I think when we talk about stuff like that, like what we hear and what the audience hears are two different things. Because for us, this was a way to shame Juxta and get a laugh on his behalf.
Right.
But I can definitely see how from an audience's perspective, it might have just been like, all right, yeah, we get it. You want money, but we're not going to give it to you.
No, what we want is shaming of me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, shame me.
I just figure if the audience wants it, then that's how they can show it, I suppose. Because, you know, we have a show that we are producing that we did, you know, more or less plan out beforehand, and we're doing it this way. But if the audience really wants something, you know, throw a couple bucks at us and we'll do it. You know, I don't think it's that shameless.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because I'm on a podcast that does take donations, but I guess the way that I always view it, like if I listen to things or watch things that are asking for donations, like I'm going to donate. If I'm not, I'm going to not. It doesn't really matter how much they talk about it.
Right.
And again, I don't know if that's because I'm in a position where I benefit from that kind of stuff, and if I was just strictly a listener, if I would feel differently about it. But that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, you know, I come from the public radio world. That's where I'm employed. And if you listen to public radio, if you watch public TV, you understand how much they have to ask for funding, because it's critical to their operation. And because we decided to take the same approach, and we didn't want to have to deal with things like be beholden to a company that would fund the show or be able to host the show's website, because we didn't want to be beholden to advertisers and what they want, and we don't want to sell you stuff with this show. That's not, I don't like having to do that. Like, that's how commercial radio has to pay their bills. That's that is you know, an unfortunate side effect. You know, like people I understand that, like, making the jump to supporting the media that you like is not an easy jump for people, because most media is supported passively. You get advertiser money, shows want to, you know, eat into their half an hour time allotment to show you commercials and try to encourage you to buy stuff, and that's the way that they're able to fund their operation. And we decided to go a different route and ask you guys directly. And you know, you've been absolutely wonderful at showing your support, but if you think that the maintenance of something like that ends at the first ask, you're wrong. It's a constant It is a constant relationship. We have people, who support us at Patreon that will support us for years, and we have people that only can afford to support us for so long, and then they have to drop off. And it's contingent on us if we want to be able to keep our budget and keep operating the way that we do, to replace those people and keep telling new people to the show that, look, this exists, and if you like what we're doing, that maybe it's something that's worth supporting. We don't do the really shitty things, which are hide our content behind a paywall. It would be really easy to release just the discussion portion of the show or just the news portion of the show and say, hey, you want the full 3 hours? Got to fork over $5. You know, it would be really easy really easy of us to do that. It would also be really easy of us to go, hey, you want to access our full archive? Fork over $5 a month. It's going to take a subscription. There's a lot of other podcasts that do that, especially podcasts that get popular. They end up making those decisions. Okay? Yep. We have decided to go a different route and be transparent with you, be upfront, be honest, and bring it on to the show to talk about it.
Bring it on.
As a way to be able to address our funding needs. Now, the thing is that, you know, we do things on the show all the time that would be considered, might be considered risky for someone who is dependent on listener support to do. Or we might say some things that upset some people and they leave. And I've said that I am totally willing and comfortable taking those risks. And I am. Because the worst thing that happens Okay? The worst thing that happens is if everyone leaves that Patreon page, if everyone rescinds their support, the worst thing that happens is that this show goes back to being produced once a month, and we do it when we can. It doesn't mean that the show would go away. We all still love this show. We love doing the show. But your support provides us the ability to be able to continue doing it in the way that you want it. We left it open for you guys. Support us at this level, and this show will go weekly. You did, and we followed through. Right? I think that's a fair trade-off. I think that is an absolutely fair trade-off. And when we have moments where we get new art from Max V that is a part of our direct Patreon campaign, you know what? We should be able to show it off. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Yep.
And if you don't like listening to pandering and begging, there's plenty of other shows. But guess what? They're going to fucking beg too. Because there's not a whole lot of really efficient ways to support a show like this or to support an idea like this. Patreon is one of the very few ways that we can do it. Your support is one of the very few ways that it actually gets done. That's it. That's it.
And Samus, you said you wanted to add something too?
Sorry.
Yeah. To add on to Nero, what you guys do, what you said about not hiding content behind money walls. I think that's being really honest with your audience. When you don't hold back, when you make comments that might be abrasive and offensive, you're being really honest with your audience, and I think the right audience will appreciate that. So when people say you're pandering for money or when you're begging for money, I don't think that's begging at all, because one thing I always say on my own podcast and my channel is, if you like what I do, give me money, because anyone who says that donations are not necessary is full of shit.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because anyone who puts work into what they do on the internet, anyone who puts work into content, the ultimate end game is to make some money out of it.
Yeah.
Everyone I could say that with absolute confidence. Anyone who makes content, who puts content on the internet, is out there to make money. So it's not unreasonable to say, hey, if you'd like to support, give me some money. If not, that's okay. But I would add the caveat that if you don't like what I do, find somebody else out there that you enjoy. Find somebody else who caters to your taste, and give them money. It's not saying that you have to give me money. I don't like it when people say that you have to give me money. I'd say, give it to me if you think you want to get behind this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And never tell an audience that donations are not necessary, because that's bullshit, and that's lying, and that's so slimy in my opinion. I don't believe in that at all.
And again, we talked about this on the last episode. I've been having computer problems, and that's a thing that would have taken almost any other podcast out at its knees. They would have lost the ability to do their live show. They would have lost their ability to record their podcast. They would have had downtime as a result of that. But because of your support, I'm able to react to that very quickly.
Didn't even skip a beat.
And no shows were lost. Not a week was lost. We're fine.
Some of Nero's sanity was lost.
Oh, yeah.
No, a lot of it.
But that's, what? That's what you guys... That's what your support enables us to do. You guys got a show last week because your support was able to allow us to work through our issues.
I remember a few times with old LBR, version 1 LBR, that if a cable went bad, we'd sometimes have to share mics.
Yeah.
Like a cable going bad, almost severely crippled us.
Absolutely. And I could get up on my soapbox and say how much money I've invested in the show over the years, and between replacing equipment and buying new equipment and trying to this is something that I've been working on building for 10 years. We have a long history of doing this, and it started with an initial investment on our parts in the web space to do it and the equipment to do it. So yeah, I feel like all of us have invested not just time and money and effort, but real blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah, in this show. And so, that's the reality. That's why we have to ask for money. That's why it takes sometimes 10, 15 minutes to pull the show over and say, hey, this is what we have going at patreon.com, because someone just left. That happens all the time. This is not... We're not forcing anyone to make a decision. You don't there's bonus content that you get out of being a Patreon, but like the core content, the core show remains free and open for everyone. If the trade-off is that you have to listen to us ask for money for a couple of minutes, I think that's a pretty fair fucking trade-off if we're not putting our content behind a paywall. Right? There are so many fucking people that do this shit. There are so many, and especially they do it when they get popular and when people start noticing them. And you know what? We keep blowing up, man. Our site keeps. I talked about this last time. Our site is having problems, and I've been working with DreamHost now for 2 weeks trying to diagnose it. We figured out what the fucking problem is, guys. Too many of you are coming to the fucking site.
Dickheads.
Stop coming to the fucking site so everyone can get their goddamn episodes.
Motherfuckers.
You know what? You know how we can stop people from coming to the sites? Let's gate that content behind money.
Problem solved. Wait, what?
That's what some people decide to do. That is a legitimate trade-off. That's a decision that some people make. We refuse to make that decision. We refuse to give you that ultimatum.
Yeah,
we refuse. We will not force you to pay money to get access to content that you deserve as a part of Limit Break Radio. Period. And if you have to listen to us talk about and ask for money, fuck it. I think that's a totally fair trade-off.
At least we veil it in entertainment, like shaming Juxta.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I get to when we do the show, I'm not as attentive to the chat room as I'd like to be, and so I'll go back and I'll watch the YouTube video after we posted to see what people were saying. During that bit, someone in the chat had put in their hashtag "You're losing listeners," and I just, you know what, man, I don't give a shit if you're watching our fucking Twitch listeners fluctuate by 15, 30 people. We have nearly 25,000 people that download this show each and every single week. You think I'm really going to give a shit if I've turned off 30 people because I'm asking for money? No, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck because you know what? They're going to listen to the podcast later and fast forward through that shit anyway. I don't care. I don't care if you don't like it. It's a fair trade-off.
Yep.
And harping on us for it, you know, that's a valid opinion. You get to hold that opinion, but I get to tell you what my opinion is too. So
you're wrong. You're wrong. Don't listen.
All right. I was sort of proofreading this next email. I don't know a lot of these words. I just don't.
You want me to read it after all?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Yeah. I want it because it's long.
All right.
Hold on. Do we want to respond to the crafting part?
Oh no, not at all.
No. Okay. I just wanted to point out.
Why would we do that?
I just wanted to point out that we weren't.
That's just
responding to it.
Duh.
Not that we forgot.
No.
But we're actively not going to respond.
Because what is there to say?
Guys, you're responding.
What the fuck is there to say?
Okay, I can say that I actually do enough crafting that if someone has a legitimate question, I could probably answer it. But nobody cares. Nobody who listens cares either. So what does it matter? I don't know.
The audience doesn't care.
So email.
That's the answer.
Email.
Yeah.
Email. As you read this letter, you may feel confused at points. If you do, keep reading. The rationale underlying Mr. Naoki Yoshida's tractates is confusing. Fortunately, as you read the superfluity of examples about how Yoshida has been trying to provide support to backwards banana republics and the reckless dictators, this letter will slowly begin to make sense. Before I say anything else, I'd like to state the following disclaimer for Yoshida's benefit. Warning! This letter may contain sarcasm. Okay, now that's taken care of. Let me posit the hypothesis that Yoshida seizes every opportunity to prevent me from sleeping soundly at night. I cannot believe this colossal clownishness. Any sane person knows that I didn't want to talk about this. I really didn't. But Yoshida wants to instill distrust and thereby create a need for his two-faced views. Who does he think he is? I mean, most members of our quick fix, sugar rush, attention deficit society are too impatient to realize the importance of providing you with a holistic and thematic history of his counterproductive pronouncements. I wish only that a few more people could see that Yoshida claims that his teachings are holy writ. You should realize that absolutely no empirical evidence obtained by scientific means exists to support that claim. Alas, that doesn't stop Yoshida from promoting groupthink attitudes over individual insights. Many innocent people are being manipulated into leading an active disinformation campaign by the most sickening displays of solidarity cant that I ever witnessed in my entire life. Finding the best way to provide an antidote to contemporary manifestations of brash totalitarianism is a challenging problem indeed. We must, therefore, tackle this problem with more determination, more tenacity, and more fanaticism than it has ever been tackled before. Only then will people realize that ever since Yoshida decided to encumber the religious idea with too many things of a purely earthly nature and thus bring religion into a totally unnecessary conflict with science, his consistent, unvarying line has been that his tricks will spread enlightenment to the masses, nurture democracy, reestablish the bonds of community, bring us closer to God, and generally work to the betterment of man and society. Just don't expect consistency from a man who is completely and truly insufferable. Yoshida thinks it's good that his campaigns of malice and malignity promote cynicism's traits as normative values to be embraced. It is difficult to know how to respond to such monumentally misplaced values, but let's try this. I don't want to build castles in the air. I don't want to plan things that I can't yet implement. But I do want to follow knowledge like a sinking star beyond the utmost bound of human thought, because doing so clearly demonstrates how he really doesn't want me to review the basic issues at the root of the debate. Well, I've never been a very obedient dog, so I intend not only to do exactly that, but also to straighten out our thinking and change the path we're on. I could be wrong about any or all of this, but at the moment, the above fits what I know of history, people, and current conditions. If anyone sees anything wrong or has some new facts or theories on this, I'd love to hear them. I have no idea what the fuck just happened.
I have no idea what just read.
I thought that was all going to culminate with something like, like when do dragoons get their pets?
I think I know where he's going with that.
But all right, Samus, please enlighten us.
Yeah, sure.
I think the TLDR is religion has no place in video games.
Oh, God, please don't tell me that we're finally at the point where someone's going, yeah, but Final Fantasy is anti-religion.
And that was such a great email too.
It was
really well worded. That's probably been my most favorite thing I've ever got to read on this show.
It was very well written, but I think
there's too many words.
Yes,
I can't believe that I didn't stumble on totalitarianism.
all of that language kind of obscured, I think, your point. Emailer, I really do. I don't know what.
Here's my
But he's
thoughts.
being sarcastic. I
Because
think he's trying to write it in a sarcastic.
Yeah.
Yes, so I think that all of that, there are people out there who probably actually think a lot of that shit, and I think that was just his way of being like,
well, there is
the official forums. There's shit on the official forums that brings up that religion.
I was just gonna say there's a thread on OF right now, and I don't know if it's in lore forums or if it's in general discussion, but it was like why did Heaven's Word decide to be so anti-religion?
Right.
And that thread has exploded into idiocy of all kinds. And religion is such a loaded topic. And dude, I think that this would be a fun topic to talk about. I just don't think that I mean, we're already 3 hours and 2 minutes into the show. I don't think that we can spend another 3 hours on this. So.
I would like to say again though that it was an absolute pleasure reading that email, and someone said Kalo read that email so beautifully. How does he mispronounce words all the time? Like some of the shit that I mispronounce, but I get through totalitarianism.
I know, right? It's
all
weird.
All right. So that's the end of our show.
Yeah,
now,
hold on. There's wrap it up. That was a lot of words and letters and stuff.
So we're done.
I like this next email that has pictures. So I'm going to read this next email.
Oh, great.
Dear esteemed Mr. Juxtaposition.
Do they want us to steam him like a boiled crab?
And everyone else. I've been had at work. I've been hard at work.
There you go.
In Eorzea and real life. So I apologize for the delay in the progress of Sir Juxtaposition figurine.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. Attached are a few shots so far. Sorry, Juxta, but it'll likely just end up being a bust and not a full figure. That's fine. For Project Zero, you can have a bust, and then as we go down the line and have more seasons of the Juxtaposition figure.
What? Are you fucking kidding me?
Then we can have larger, the full scale, Like, you know,
you can't just
arms.
you just can't say thank you for something.
Arms. I have like a arm that shoots out like a missile.
What a dick! What an asshole!
Other than that, I'm level 40 and still working through the main storyline quest. This game is so amazing. Please keep doing what you're doing. Makes the day go by so much quicker. Love, Lila.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for the email, Lila. Should we show pictures of
this? Definitely.
Yeah, it looks good.
It looks good.
I mean, it is impressive. It is impressive.
The eyes look kind of weird to me.
The eyes are the best part.
Yeah. All right.
Really?
We'll show this off.
I love the eyes.
We'll show,
I like it.
We'll show this off on the stream. Here you go, stream. This is.
Capture his goofiness.
This is Juxta's. This is the current project. The current progress on Juxta's action figure.
I'm an action figure.
Oh God.
I love that drop.
How much are you gonna masturbate when you go home to this, Juxta?
When I go home.
Like, I've already started.
He's got your left sock, Nero. You just don't know it yet.
Don't touch under this desk.
Crispy socks here. Crispy socks there. Oh, gross. We've actually got we've got multiple angles on this too. Here we'll
look at my
got a ponytail. Your ponytail.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I'll make sure that you get my blue highlights though, Lila, just so you know.
And then here we'll scroll down to this one.
It does look pretty cool.
Look at the body armor on it.
The body armor is pretty impressive, I got to say. They put a lot of time.
Look at the detail on that chainmail.
I know.
It's so stupid.
I really look forward to when you do the full figured version.
Well, cool, Lila. I'm glad that our show means this much to you. That I'm
glad that
you'd be willing that you would be willing to take the least of us and throw him a bone and make an action figure out of him.
Yeah. Shame me.
It's a really nice thing for you to do.
Charity is important. in this world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for someone who
I'm an action figure
who totally doesn't deserve it. So anyway, but
just remember
I'm an action figure.
Yeah, you've hit it. You've hit it. Fucking Bruce. We get it.
I'm an action figure.
We get it.
What are you guys?
I would like to use my one band Juxta host thingy for the show.
There
the
you go.
rest of the show, he's muted.
There you go. Yeah, you're done. He's just gonna hit that action figure drop over and over and over
then
again.
Maybe we should use it on the drops too.
Mute the drops.
Yeah.
Too? Well, we'll do that.
If he abuses it.
Yeah.
I'll abuse you.
He's muted.
Yeah, he is. Oh, he is definitely muted.
You can still hear me.
We know. We had an entire iteration of the show where you were muted and we could still hear you.
You're not the victim here.
I am.
That one hurt my ears.
All right, so that's I think that's going to do it here for Limit Break Radio for episode number 29. Thank you so much, Samus Rageborn, for coming on the show today and talking about the metagame, a subject that I don't think that we had started to talk about it a little bit through the email, but something that we wanted to actually spend a lot of time unpacking, and I really think that we had a really interesting discussion here. So thank you very much for your input today, dude.
Not at all. This was a lot of fun, and I'm glad we were able to, I guess, bring a different side of video game like Final Fantasy discussion to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like Square-Enix has given us anything to talk about recently, so
Whoa, shots fired.
In the moments where we need to figure it out, it's good. It's good to know that the players of this community can really use some out of the box thinking and some critical thinking and look at the way that not just Square Enix as a developer impacts this game, but the way that we as players, as individuals, as organizations, as mouthpieces, whatever, that we also have an impact here as well. And so the more that we talk about it, and the more that we define those roles, and try to get everyone on the same page, I think the better off as a community we will be. And the fact that we're topping 5 million, that we're nipping at World of Warcraft's heels, in the top 3 MMO categories right now, I think that that's important. It's important to not just look at Square Enix critically, but also look at our own community critically for what we can do better, to communicate towards them what we want and what will make the game better, and cut out all of this superfluous bitching and bullshit that goes on that that seems to catch everybody's attention when it happens. And so if we've been able to do that at all today, I think that that our mission has been served with this episode. So thank you guys for listening to the show live on twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. All 238 of you amazing people. That's been as high as almost 250 today. We want to thank all of you for tuning in live at twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. For all of our callers, we had such interesting callers today. If you want to be a caller on a future episode to Limit Break Radio, make sure that you're doing two things: that you add us on Skype at Limit Break Radio, and you're tuning in live each and every single Sunday over at twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. If you want to support Limit Break Radio and ensure that this show stays on the air each and every single week, then head on over to patreon.com/Limit Break Radio and toss a couple of bucks in the hat, whatever is appropriate for your budget. We don't want you to break the bank. For as much as we've gone on about how the support matters and the support helps, we do want to do what is appropriate for you. We're not forcing you into a decision. We are hopefully giving you proper incentive to want to maybe help us out. But really, in the end, the reason that we hope that you help us out isn't because of the keychains, isn't because of the dog tags, isn't because of the extra green room show that we do, the t-shirts, the posters, any of that shit. It's because it goes to help a show that you love. That is the goal. So patreon.com/Limit Break Radio is how that gets done. All right. So again, thank you very much to our guest, Samage Rageborn, and talking about the metagame. I'd also like to thank my co-hosts, Kalo Landis, Juxtaposition, and Nika Kayanian. And even though he's not here, we'll send a shout out to Escalia just to make him feel a little bit better. I'm Aniro. Keep listening. Limit Break Radio is a production of LimitBreakRadio.com and Bender Media Productions. Today's episode was produced by Kalo Landis, Aniro Grigori, Nika Kayanian, and Samus Rageborn. Final Fantasy XIV and Eorzea are trademarks of Square-Enix. Funding for Limit Break Radio is provided by Neri Kennett, Scry De La Rosa, Zurian Urexin, Satori Komeji, Karkwin Albarn, Rajan Nelka, and fellow Limit Break Radio listeners. To support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/Limit Break Radio. Opening music in this episode from Daniel Lambie. Listen to Man with the Machine Gun and other great tracks at facebook.com/Daniel Lambie Metal Gamer. Closing music in this episode provided by Husky by the Geek. Listen to this and other great Final Fantasy XIV and video game rock covers and original music at facebook.com/Husky by the Geek. In-game graphics for Limit Break Radio's Twitch stream are provided by Diamond Multimedia. Check out their line of AMD graphics cards and other hardware at diamondmm.com. Limit Break Radio and its hosts are solely responsible for its content.